Imagine living with the kind of confidence that allows you to take bold steps, make difficult choices, and chase your goals without hesitation. Imagine what your life could be like if fear of failure didn't control your decisions, your actions, or your dreams. But be honest, how many times have you stopped yourself from trying something new, not because you weren't capable, but because you were afraid of what might go wrong? The truth is, fear of failure doesn't come from reality. It comes from the stories we tell ourselves, from the belief that mistakes define us, that setbacks are shameful, that one failure means the end. But what if I told you that failure is not your enemy? It's your teacher, your ally, your path to strength. Today, you're going to learn 25 powerful Stoic strategies that will help you break free from the fear that's been holding you back. These are not just ideas, they are ancient, time-tested tools that will help you face life with courage, wisdom, and peace of mind. So get ready, because after this video, you won't see failure the same way again. Before we begin, I want you to make a decision. Write this in the comments. I will not fear failure. You're not just writing words, you're planting a seed. The more you repeat it, the stronger it will grow inside you. You'll stop freezing when fear knocks on the door and start stepping forward with confidence. Write it now. And let's begin. Number 1. Use reverse premeditation to face fear before it controls you. Think about the thing you've been avoiding. Maybe it's a dream you haven't chased, a conversation you haven't started, or a risk you haven't taken. Maybe it's something small. Maybe it's something that's been burning inside you for years. But whatever it is, one thing is certain. It's fear that's keeping you still. Not facts, not failure, just fear. Fear doesn't always scream. Sometimes it speaks softly. It pretends to protect you. It says, "What if you're not ready?" It says, "What if you fail and everyone sees it?" It says, "Maybe later." And with every excuse it feeds you, your confidence slowly weakens, your courage quietly fades, and your time begins to slip away. But the Stoics had a tool to break that pattern. They called it premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of misfortune. They believed in facing fear before it arrived. They imagined the worst-case scenario in clear, brutal detail. Not to be pessimistic, but to train their minds for strength. They knew that reality is rarely as bad as our imagination makes it. But today, you're going to do the opposite. You're going to turn it around. You're going to practice something even more powerful: reverse premeditation. What does that mean? It means you stop imagining what could go wrong if you fail, and start imagining what will go wrong if you never try. Don't picture the embarrassment of a mistake. Picture the quiet misery of never stepping forward. Don't picture the critics. Picture the regret. Close your eyes for a moment and see yourself 1 year from now. You've avoided the challenge. You've stayed in your comfort zone. You're still waiting for the right moment, still holding back. Nothing changed. You're still the same, but something inside you feels smaller, like a fire that's burning low. Now go further. 5 years, 10 years, still afraid, still making excuses, still letting fear win. You've lived safely, quietly. But now you carry something heavier than failure. You carry regret. The kind that whispers, "You could have done it." The kind that haunts you, not because you failed, but because you never gave yourself the chance to find out what was possible. That's what reverse premeditation is for. To show you that the true danger is not in taking action, it's in never taking action at all. Every time you hesitate, every time you back down, every time you choose comfort over courage, you're slowly training yourself to live smaller than you were meant to be. You weren't made for safety. You weren't made to tiptoe through life hoping to avoid mistakes. You were made to try, to fall, to rise, and to try again. Marcus Aurelius didn't have time to waste on fear. He didn't ask for permission to act. He reminded himself daily that life was short, that hesitation was the enemy, and that the mind must be trained to face challenge, not avoid it. If an emperor with the weight of the Roman Empire on his shoulders could make space to confront fear, what excuse do you have? So the next time fear creeps in and your thoughts start spinning, don't avoid it. Don't push it away. Sit with it. Look it in the eye. And instead of asking, "What if I fail?" ask something far more important. What if I never try? Let that question burn through your excuses. Let it wake you up. Let it remind you that you're not here to live half alive, trapped in imagined dangers. You're here to act. You're here to move. You're here to become. You don't need to be fearless. You just need to stop letting fear make your decisions. Let reverse premeditation show you what's really at stake. Let it teach you that the cost of inaction is far greater than the pain of any failure. And remember this, failure is temporary. Regret is forever. So when the fear comes again tomorrow, and it will, don't run, don't hide, face it. And ask yourself the question that changes everything. What kind of life will I have if I let this fear win? The answer will give you the strength to move forward. Number 2, internalize the theater metaphor and stop performing for the world. Imagine this. You walk into a grand theater. The seats are full, lights are on, the stage is yours. But you're not here to act from the heart. You're here to perform, to please, to say the right lines, to get the right applause. You feel the eyes on you, the pressure building, the weight of their opinions pressing on your back like a stone. You start to forget who you really are, and instead you become who they expect you to be. That's the trap. That's the illusion. And most people live their entire lives on that stage. But tell me the truth. How many times have you stopped yourself from doing something you truly wanted just because you feared what others might think? How often have you made your choices not from purpose, but from pressure? How much of your life is lived not for you, but for the audience? This is the theater metaphor. Life becomes a performance. You wear masks. You say lines you don't believe. You chase applause instead of meaning. But the Stoics had a different way. They didn't live for the crowd. They lived by principle. They lived by truth. They lived like the stage was empty. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself again and again, you have power over your mind, not outside events. He meant that the world will always have opinions. People will always judge. But you don't have to let their gaze define your role. You don't have to be their puppet. You don't have to twist yourself into someone you're not. When you internalize the theater metaphor, you see the truth behind the performance. You realize that no matter what you do, someone will always have something to say. They'll praise you. They'll criticize you. They'll misunderstand you. That's not your job to control. Your job is to live with integrity, to write your own lines, to act from your values, not their expectations. Most people waste their potential because they're too busy playing a role. The good student, the perfect parent, the successful entrepreneur, the strong one, the agreeable one. They build entire identities around what the world wants to see, and in the process, they lose their own script. They forget what they really believe, what they really feel, and what they truly want. But you can't be free if you're still on that stage. You can't grow if every step is based on applause. You can't conquer fear of failure if you're still living for the approval of people who don't even know your heart. And you must remember, none of them are thinking about you as much as you think they are. Their opinions are passing clouds. You, however, have to live with your choices. So what's the solution? Step off the stage, tear down the set, turn off the spotlight, and start living as if no one is watching. Because that is where your real self lives. That is where your courage comes from. That is where fear of failure dies. When you stop performing, something changes. You stop asking, "Will they like me?" and start asking, "Will I respect myself for this?" You stop moving for approval and start moving with purpose. You stop fearing mistakes and start trusting your own path. That is power. That is freedom. Remember, the world is full of noise, full of judgment, full of shifting opinions. But your soul doesn't answer to the crowd. It answers to reason. It answers to virtue. It answers to the quiet voice inside that knows who you really are. So every time you feel fear creep in because someone might not like what you say, or because you might fail in front of others, pause, breathe, and remember the theater. Remember that the applause is not your purpose. The spotlight is not your guide. The critics are not your master. Live as if no one's watching, not because you're hiding, but because you've finally stopped needing the world's permission to be yourself. And the moment you do that, the fear of failure begins to fade, because now you're no longer trying to impress anyone, you're just trying to live well. And that is the most powerful role you will ever play. Number 3. Practice philosophical shamelessness and free yourself from the weight of other people's opinions. There will come a moment in your life, if it hasn't already, where you'll stop and realize just how much of your time, your energy, and your peace has been wasted trying to fit into someone else's mold. You said things you didn't believe. You stayed quiet when you wanted to speak. You wore clothes you didn't like, laughed at jokes you didn't find funny, and followed paths that never felt like your own. Why? Because you were afraid of what others would say. You were afraid of being judged. You were afraid of being seen as different, as strange, as foolish. But here's the truth that every Stoic understood. Shame only has power if you give it permission. Philosophical shamelessness is not about being arrogant. It's not about ignoring decency or doing whatever you want with no care for others. No, it's about something deeper. It's about being so rooted in your values that you stop bending to the winds of opinion. It's about standing so firmly in who you are that no insult can shake you and no crowd can steer you away from your path. Think about this. How many things have you not done because you were afraid of looking silly? How many ideas have you kept inside because you didn't want to be laughed at? How many times have you changed your behavior, not because you believed it was right, but because you were afraid of standing out? Seneca said, "What is disgraceful is not failing to conform to the crowd, but fearing to." That is the heart of philosophical shamelessness. Not carelessness, but courage. The courage to look foolish, the courage to stumble, the courage to walk alone if you must, knowing that truth is not decided by popularity. When you live this way, something incredible happens. You become untouchable, not in the sense that nothing can hurt you, but in the sense that nothing petty can control you. If someone mocks you, so be it. If someone disagrees, let them. You don't chase arguments. You don't defend your ego. You simply move forward, guided not by noise, but by principle. But this takes practice. Every time you feel embarrassment creeping in, every time you're about to hold back out of fear of what others might say, pause. Notice the feeling. Don't run from it. Sit with it. And then ask yourself, is this shame coming from virtue or from vanity? Most of the time, you'll find it's not your conscience speaking, it's your pride, it's your image, and that's not something worth protecting. Philosophical shamelessness is like a shield. The world may throw criticism, sarcasm, rejection, but none of it touches you if you've already made peace with being misunderstood. The crowd wants you to play by its rules. It wants you to stay predictable, safe, small. But Stoicism calls you to rise above that. It calls you to speak plainly, act honestly, and walk your path even if no one else understands it. Marcus Aurelius faced the judgment of senators, soldiers, citizens, and yet he never let their approval become his compass. He reminded himself again and again, "Am I doing what I was made to do? Am I being true to reason?" That was his guide, not applause, not fear, just purpose. You were not born to be liked by everyone. You were not born to fit in. You were born to live well, to think clearly, to act with honor. If that makes you stand out, good. If that makes people whisper, better. Let them talk, let them doubt. You do not answer to them, you answer to yourself. So the next time you hesitate, whether it's sharing an idea, setting a boundary, or taking a bold step, remember this: it is not shameful to be different. It is shameful to betray your own mind just to please someone who does not walk your path. Be bold in your virtue. Be strong in your truth. Be shameless in your reason, because that is the only approval that matters. And once you embrace that, you'll find that failure no longer frightens you, because you've already freed yourself from the only thing that ever truly held you back. Number 4. Develop indifference to praise and reclaim your inner freedom. It feels good, doesn't it? When someone compliments your work, when they applaud your effort, when they say you're talented, smart, impressive. Praise can be like a drug, soft, sweet, and addictive. But tell me the truth. How often have you started doing something, not because it was right, but because it would win approval? How many times have you chased recognition instead of meaning? How often has your self-worth been tied to someone else's words? You may think praise is harmless, but the Stoics knew better. Praise, when craved, becomes a chain, and the moment you start needing it, you are no longer free, because now your actions are no longer your own. You begin to move not from inner conviction, but from outer reward. You begin to act not for the sake of doing right, but for the sake of being seen doing it. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome, had people praising him daily, citizens, soldiers, senators. But he knew the truth. Praise is wind, it comes and goes, and it is not proof of virtue. He wrote to himself over and over, "Don't value what the praiser says, only whether what you did was right." Because if you let praise define you, you'll let criticism destroy you. And both, in the end, are just noise. You must train yourself to become indifferent to praise, not bitter, not arrogant, just immune. Not because praise is bad, but because it's empty, if it's the reason you act. Think of a sculptor working in silence. She doesn't shape the marble so others will clap. She shapes it because it must be shaped. That's how you must live, doing what is right because it is right, not because someone's watching, not because you'll be celebrated, but because it is your duty, your principle, your path. There's nothing wrong with people appreciating you. Let them. But don't let it touch your soul. Don't let their words become your compass. One day they'll cheer, the next they'll forget. And if your self-worth rises and falls with the crowd, you'll never stand on steady ground. This is where most people fall. They confuse applause with progress. They believe they're growing just because someone is clapping, But growth often happens in silence, in struggle, in obscurity. Real progress doesn't always get noticed, and that's okay, because the reward is not in being seen, it's in becoming. Every time you do something brave, something honest, something difficult, ask yourself one thing: would I still do this if no one ever found out? That's the test. That's the check. If the answer is yes, you are walking the Stoic path. If the answer is no, pause, reflect, and remember why you started in the first place. You don't need applause to become excellent. You need discipline. You need clarity. You need purpose. The Stoics didn't write for fame. They wrote for themselves. They didn't speak for praise. They spoke for truth. They didn't act for reputation. They acted for character. So starting today, strip away the craving for praise. Let people admire you if they wish, but don't let their admiration change your direction. You are not a puppet. You are not a performer. You are a thinker, a doer, a human being capable of choosing your path with reason and intention. When someone praises you, smile if you wish, but move on. Stay grounded, stay focused, stay free. Because only when you no longer need to be praised can you finally begin to act with true power. And once you reach that point, fear of failure fades. Because now you're no longer trying to impress anyone. You're simply trying to live rightly. And that, the Stoics would say, is the only kind of success that matters. Number 5, take exile as training and turn isolation into inner strength. There will be times in your life when you feel distant. Not physically, maybe, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, separated from others, misunderstood, left out. Maybe you've been rejected. Maybe life has taken you far from where you used to be. Maybe you've chosen a path that few understand, and now you're walking it alone. That's exile. And every person who chooses growth, truth, or purpose will eventually face it. But here's the truth the Stoics knew. Exile is not a punishment. It is a training ground. Musonius Rufus was sent into exile. So was Seneca. So was Epictetus. These weren't weak men. These were giants of thought and character. And yet life stripped away their comfort, took them from their homes, cut them off from what they knew. But instead of falling apart, they sharpened themselves in the silence. They didn't curse the isolation. They used it. They let the stillness make them stronger. You may not be living on an island or banished by an emperor, but maybe you've been cut off in other ways. Maybe your ambitions have made people pull away. Maybe your honesty has made you unpopular. Maybe your discipline, your new habits, your decision to take control of your life has made the crowd uncomfortable, and now you walk alone. Good. That means you're doing something right. You were not made to fit in, you were made to become. And becoming often begins in exile. When you are removed from the noise, you start to hear yourself again. When you are away from the distractions, the opinions, the constant flood of outside voices, you are left only with your own thoughts. And that can feel heavy, but that is where strength is built. That is where clarity is born. Don't resist the exile. Accept it, embrace it, use it, turn it into your forge. This is your chance to read, to reflect, to train your body, to sharpen your mind, to build the kind of inner resilience that doesn't come from comfort. It comes from solitude. It comes from silence. It comes from facing the emptiness and not being afraid of it. If you constantly need noise to feel okay, you're not okay. If you constantly need people to feel seen, you haven't seen yourself. But when you can stand alone and still feel whole, then you are truly free. That is the lesson of exile. Not bitterness, not victimhood, power. The world will always push you to conform, to return to the crowd, to soften your edges. But if you take exile as training, you won't come back weaker. You'll come back unshakable. You'll no longer move because others move. You'll no longer doubt just because others doubt. You'll act from the inside out, not the outside in. Seneca wrote, "Wherever a man is, he can live well." And that includes exile. That includes solitude. That includes the quiet spaces where no one is watching. That is where the real work begins. So if you find yourself walking alone, don't panic. Don't beg for company. Don't run back to the noise. Stand still. Breathe. Look around and realize this is your training ground. This is where you stop being dependent. This is where you stop needing the world's permission to grow. You don't need a crowd to become who you are. You need discipline. You need intention. You need stillness. Exile is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of your power. So when the world distances itself from you, or when you choose to step away, don't see it as loss. See it as gain. See it as a sacred space where you build something no one can take from you. And remember this, exile is not where the weak are sent, it's where the strong are made. Number 6, reframe as obedience to nature and find peace in what you cannot control. There is a moment when things don't go the way you planned. The job falls through. The relationship ends. The effort doesn't pay off. You try to hold on, to force the outcome, to ask why. Why now? Why me? Why this? And in that moment, frustration takes over. Resistance grows. Your mind begins to fight reality. You don't want what is, you want what should have been. But the Stoics taught something else. They taught us not to resist nature, but to obey it, not to complain about what happens, but to accept it as part of the larger whole. They believed that everything, every gain, every loss, every twist and turn, was part of a natural order far greater than us. And our peace comes not from controlling it, but from aligning ourselves with it. To reframe means to look again, not through the eyes of ego, but through the eyes of reason. When something happens that you didn't want, the untrained mind says, "This is wrong." But the Stoic mind says, "This is part of the design." You don't have to like it. You just have to stop fighting it. Think of the tree that bends in the wind. It doesn't curse the storm. It doesn't snap in anger. It moves. It adapts. It obeys the nature around it, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. You must do the same. When setbacks come, when plans collapse, when life interrupts your rhythm, ask yourself, is this truly bad, or is this just unexpected? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Whatever happens to you was prepared for you from eternity." He didn't say that to sound mystical. He said it to remind himself and you that life unfolds exactly as it must. The river flows where it flows. The seasons come when they come. You are a part of nature, not separate from it. And when you accept that, you no longer waste energy resenting what cannot be changed. Obedience to nature is not about giving up. It's about letting go of the illusion that you are the master of everything. You are not. You don't control other people. You don't control the weather. You don't control outcomes. But you do control how you respond. That's where your power begins. When you reframe your obstacles as necessary, they lose their sting. When you see loss not as punishment, but as transformation, your pain becomes your teacher. When you stop resisting what is, you begin to see what's possible. You shift from "why me" to "what now?" You move forward. This doesn't mean you stop striving. It means you strive with clarity. You work hard, but without clinging. You dream boldly, but accept reality when it speaks. You push forward, but not against the current, within it. This is what obedience to nature looks like. Waking up and doing your duty, no matter what the day brings. Staying calm when plans fall apart. Staying grounded when emotions rise. Trusting that even in chaos there is order. Even in struggle there is purpose. You are not here to bend the universe to your will. You are here to live well within the laws that govern it. And once you learn to obey nature, not with fear, but with respect, you will find a strength that doesn't break when things don't go your way. So when the day brings something unexpected, don't curse it. Don't resist it. Breathe. Step back. Reframe it. Say to yourself, this too is part of the path. This too belongs. And remember this, the Stoic doesn't need life to be perfect. The Stoic only needs life to be real and the courage to meet it with reason, resilience, and grace. Number 7. Train in voluntary discomfort only when you don't feel like it. It's easy to be disciplined when you feel motivated. It's easy to challenge yourself when everything is going well, when the sun is shining, when your body feels strong and your mind is sharp. But discipline doesn't mean much when it's easy. The real test, the Stoic test, comes when everything inside you wants comfort, and you choose the hard path anyway. That's where transformation begins. The world tells you to avoid pain, to escape hardship, to follow the path of least resistance. But the Stoics didn't seek comfort. They trained themselves to rise above it. Seneca slept on hard surfaces, fasted willingly, wore simple clothes, not because he had to, but because he knew that if you can choose discomfort when you don't have to, then life's unexpected suffering loses its power over you. You can't wait for the mood to strike. You can't wait for perfect conditions. You have to move exactly when your mind resists. That's when it counts. That's when the training is real. So you're tired? Good. Go run anyway. You don't want to take the cold shower today? That's exactly why you should. You want to skip the reading, the journaling, the reflection? That's the signal to do it now, not later. Now. Because if you only act when you feel ready, then you're not in control. Your emotions are. And if your emotions lead, your life will be soft, reactive, scattered. But if you lead, if reason leads, then nothing, not fatigue, not fear, not doubt, can stop you. This is what voluntary discomfort is about. It's not about punishing yourself. It's not about proving anything to others. It's about building an internal fortress. So when the hard days come, and they will, you're already prepared. You've already practiced. You've already met discomfort on your terms. Most people only know two states, comfort and crisis, and when comfort breaks, they fall apart. But the Stoic knows a third state, chosen hardship, the place where you train your will, where you face what others avoid, where you prove to yourself that you don't need ease to move forward, you don't need ideal conditions, you just need resolve. Marcus Aurelius didn't want luxury. He didn't chase pleasure. He reminded himself daily that the body could endure much more than the mind believed. And the moment you test that, when you go beyond your excuses, you'll find the same thing. So every time your body whispers, "Not today," every time your mind says, "Just skip it," you must answer back with action. You must choose the cold when you want warmth. Choose the effort when you crave rest. Choose the silence when you'd rather distract yourself. Because in those moments, you're not just building discipline, you're building identity. You're becoming the kind of person who doesn't need the perfect mood to do what needs to be done. And that kind of person is unstoppable. Don't let comfort become your cage. Don't let softness rot your potential. Every day you avoid discomfort, you grow weaker, but every day you choose it, especially when you don't feel like it. You grow into something stronger than fear, stronger than failure, stronger than circumstance. Train your mind to act when your body protests. Train your body to endure when your thoughts beg for ease. This is the Stoic path. Not comfort, not motivation, but will, pure and simple. And remember, anyone can train when it's easy, but only the disciplined train when it's not. That's when the real growth happens. That's when you forge the part of yourself no one can take away. So next time you feel resistance, don't wait for it to go away. Use it as your cue. That's the moment. That's the window. That's when it matters most. Because if you can act then, you can act always. Number 8. Practice the discipline of action and stop letting hesitation waste your life. You've thought about it enough. You've planned, imagined, dreamed, visualized. You've read the books, watched the videos, listened to the advice. You know what you want to do, but you're still not doing it. Why? What are you waiting for? The right mood, the perfect moment, total confidence. Here's the truth. Those things may never come. And if they do, it'll be too late. Because while you wait, time does not. While you hesitate, the world moves on. The Stoics didn't care much for words. They cared for action, for results, for movement. They believed that philosophy means nothing unless it leads to doing. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." That means stop talking, start acting. Don't just say you value courage, do something brave. Don't just say you want discipline. Start now while it's uncomfortable. Don't just plan your future, build it, one step at a time. Action is what separates the dreamer from the doer. It's what turns thoughts into reality. And yet, most people live stuck in their heads, thinking endlessly, doubting constantly, waiting forever. But the Stoic knows that hesitation is just fear in disguise. It's the mind trying to protect itself from discomfort, from failure, from looking foolish. But what's the cost of that comfort? What's the cost of standing still? Every day you delay action, your goals drift further away. Every time you choose comfort over movement, your potential weakens. And eventually, if you wait long enough, you start to forget what you were even trying to do in the first place. But it doesn't have to be this way. You can take the first step. You can build momentum. And once you start moving, fear begins to lose its grip. You don't need motivation. You need motion. Because action creates its own energy. Action builds clarity. Action silences doubt. The second you move, even a little, the fog begins to clear. The problem starts to shrink. The fear begins to fade, and you realize it was never as hard as you made it out to be. But here's the catch. Action is a discipline. It must be practiced daily. You have to train your mind to respond to discomfort with movement. You have to build the habit of acting before the excuses take over. That means doing what you said you would do, even when you don't feel like it. That means getting up when you'd rather stay down. That means choosing the hard thing again and again until it becomes your way of life. Marcus Aurelius, ruler of the Roman Empire, didn't have the luxury of waiting. He had to act every day, with clarity, with focus, with urgency. He reminded himself that life is short and the duty is now, not later. Now. And you must do the same, because every delay chips away at your potential. Every excuse buries your purpose a little deeper. But every action, no matter how small, is a vote for the person you are becoming. So when you feel the resistance, don't think. Don't overanalyze. Just move. Do something. Write one sentence. Take one step. Say one hard truth. Get up, show up, and keep moving forward. You don't have to finish everything today. You just have to begin, again and again, until action becomes who you are. And remember this, you were not put here just to think deeply. You were put here to live bravely. Number 9. Use contraction of the self to escape the noise and find your center. The world is loud. Everyone is speaking. Everyone is reaching. Everyone is showing off, performing, chasing validation, chasing likes, chasing more. It's easy to get pulled into it, to feel like you need to share every opinion, prove every point, show every win. It's easy to believe that growth means expansion, more attention, more people, more praise, more visibility. But the Stoics teach something different, something quiet, something powerful. They teach the practice of contraction. You are not meant to expand endlessly into the world, not all the time, not every day. There is a strength in pulling back, in shrinking your attention, in narrowing your focus, in contracting the self. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Withdraw into yourself, especially when the noise is too loud." He knew that greatness doesn't come from spreading yourself thin. It comes from going inward, from protecting your energy, from stepping away from everything that distracts, overwhelms, or inflates the ego. You don't need to be everywhere. You don't need to answer everything. You don't need to perform your life for the world. The more you stretch yourself to be seen, the easier it is to forget who you are. The more you react, the more you lose control. The more you shout, the less you hear. But when you contract, when you pull back into stillness, into reflection, into discipline, something changes. You become sharp. You become clear. You start seeing what matters and what doesn't. You stop needing to be understood. You stop needing to be admired. You start needing only one thing: to live with virtue. This is not weakness. This is power. The kind of power that doesn't need to prove itself. The kind of strength that doesn't need applause. The kind of clarity that comes only from silence. Use contraction like a reset. When the world overwhelms you, don't speed up. Slow down. When your ego wants to shout, go quiet. When everyone else is broadcasting, return to your journal, your breath, your mind, your reason. You don't have to vanish. You don't have to disappear. You simply have to return to the inner fortress where your thoughts are your own, where your values are untouched, where your judgment is clean. And from that place, you move, not with noise, not with reaction, but with intention. Seneca warned us of the danger of always being out in the open, always scattered, always seeking attention. He said, "Retire into yourself as much as you can, not to escape the world, but to re-enter it with strength." You cannot lead yourself if you are lost in the crowd. You cannot be wise if you are always in conversation. You cannot face failure if your identity is spread thin across the opinions of others. So take time each day, even a few moments, to shrink, to pull in, to be small on the outside and vast on the inside. Read, reflect, Be still. Ask yourself, what am I chasing right now? And do I even need it? Most of the time the answer is no. You don't need more. You need less. You don't need louder. You need quieter. You don't need the world to see you. You need to see yourself. Because contraction is not withdrawal. It is preparation. Like the archer pulling back the bow before releasing the arrow. Like the muscle that tenses before lifting weight. Like the breath you hold before stepping into something great. So remember this, when you feel scattered, shrink. When you feel overwhelmed, center. When your ego grows too loud, return to silence. Contraction is not hiding. It's coming home. Number 10. Value utility over outcome and free yourself from results you cannot control. You work hard. You put in the time. You give your best. You aim, you strike, and then, sometimes, you miss. Sometimes things don't go the way you planned. You didn't get the result. You didn't reach the goal. You feel disappointed, frustrated, maybe even embarrassed. And then you begin to question everything. Was it worth it? Was I foolish to try? Did I waste my time? But that's because you're looking at the wrong thing. You're measuring your success by outcome, not by effort, by results, not by reason. And that is exactly where the Stoic path turns away from the crowd. The world will tell you that you are only as good as your results, that you are only valuable if you succeed. That effort doesn't matter unless it leads to reward. But the Stoics tell you something far more liberating. Outcome is not your job. Process is. The only thing you control is how you show up, how you act, how you choose. Everything else is not up to you, so why judge yourself by it? Epictetus said, "You are not responsible for the outcome, only for the effort." That is freedom. That is clarity. You begin to realize that every action you take, every word you speak, every choice you make is either useful or it's not. It's either in line with reason or it isn't. Whether it brings success or failure on the outside is irrelevant. What matters is, did you act with wisdom? Did you act with intention? Did you act with virtue? When you learn to value utility over outcome, fear starts to lose its grip. Because now you're no longer afraid of failing. You're focused on doing the right thing. You stop chasing results you can't fully control. You stop living like a gambler, hoping life rolls in your favor. Instead, you begin to live like a craftsman. Precise, patient, focused on the work itself. Think of a farmer. He plants, he waters, he protects the soil, but he cannot force the harvest. All he can do is tend the field with care and wisdom. If the storm comes, it comes. If the sun shines, it shines. But he is measured not by the weather, he is measured by his effort. That's how you must live. Wake up and ask, what can I do that is useful today? What can I control? What is the right thing to do in this moment? And then do it, without expectation, without obsession over what it will bring. That is strength, that is discipline. Outcomes are seductive. They sparkle, they promise validation, but they are also unstable. They come and go. They are not a reflection of your worth. Only your actions are. That's why Marcus Aurelius could lose battles and still remain unshaken. That's why Epictetus, born a slave, could walk through life with dignity. That's why Seneca, even in the face of death, could remain composed. They were not controlled by outcome. They were guided by purpose. You will have days where you give everything and still fall short. Good. That means you're trying. That means you're alive. That means you're learning. Don't measure the day by the result. Measure it by the integrity of your effort. Measure it by the clarity of your choices. Measure it by how useful your actions were, not how impressive the reward looked. And when you live this way, anchored in process, detached from outcome, you begin to feel something different. You begin to feel peace. Not because life gets easier, but because your mind no longer rises and falls with every win or loss. So today, do the work. Focus on the task. Take the action. But when it's done, let go. Leave the results to nature. Leave the praise to others. You've already succeeded because you acted in line with your principles. And that, the Stoics would say, is the only outcome that matters. Number 11. View failure as obedience to providence and release your grip on what you cannot control. You planned everything. You worked hard. You showed up. You gave it your best. And still, it didn't go your way. The door closed. The answer was no. The result was silence. The outcome, in the end, was failure. And now your mind spins. You ask, what did I do wrong? You question your worth. You feel shame. But what if you didn't fail at all? What if what you call failure is simply reality unfolding exactly as it was meant to? What if this moment, this disappointment, is not punishment, but alignment? The Stoics believed in providence, in the quiet wisdom of the universe. They believed that while we control our choices, we do not control the outcomes, that we are responsible for the effort, but never the result, that the plan may belong to us, but the outcome belongs to something greater, nature, fate, the whole. And when you live with that belief, failure loses its sting. You didn't fail. You obeyed. You acted with virtue. You followed reason. You made your move. And then you surrendered. That's Stoicism, not passivity, not weakness, obedience to something larger than your ego. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal, war, loss, disease, and the death of his children. Still, he wrote, "Whatever happens to you has been waiting to happen since the beginning of time." Not because he was numb, but because he understood that his role was not to control the script. His role was to play his part, and play it well. So now, in your moment of failure, breathe. Step back. Let go. Ask yourself not, why did this happen to me? But, what does this moment ask of me? That's the shift. That's the transformation. You stop clinging. You stop resisting. You start trusting. You see the setback not as a curse, but as a call, a redirection, a lesson in disguise. When a Stoic fails, they don't collapse. They don't curse fate. They return to discipline. They return to character. They say, I will not control this, but I will control how I respond. That's power. That's peace. Maybe you didn't get the job. Maybe the business didn't take off. Maybe someone walked away. Good. Maybe it wasn't meant to happen yet. Maybe something greater is being shaped in the fire of your frustration. Maybe this is how strength is built, through resistance. Because if life gave you everything you asked for the moment you wanted it, how would you ever grow? How would you build patience, humility, clarity? The Stoics knew that failure is not the enemy. The enemy is bitterness. The enemy is despair. The enemy is blaming the world when things don't go your way. Don't fight the universe. Cooperate with it. Align yourself. Let go of the illusion that you're supposed to win every time. You're not. Sometimes you're supposed to fall, to slow down, to start again. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. So from now on, when failure knocks, don't slam the door. Let it in. Welcome it like a teacher. Sit with it. Ask what it's here to show you, and then rise. not with resentment, but with reverence. You tried, you acted with intention, you obeyed providence, and that is not failure, that is success in its highest form. Number 12. Study the death of projects like the death of people, and learn to let go with grace. Things end. That's the one truth we all try to avoid. We don't like endings. We resist them. We cling. We pretend. We try to breathe life back into what is already gone. But endings are part of life. People pass away. Seasons change. Chapters close. And yes, projects die too. Maybe you had a dream that never took off, a business that didn't work out, a book you never finished, a plan that kept falling apart no matter how hard you pushed. And instead of accepting its death, you held on. You kept reviving it, not because it made sense, but because you were afraid to admit it was over. The Stoics taught us how to face death with peace. Not just the death of people, but the death of anything we're attached to. Relationships, roles, plans, even our old identity. Because to grow, you must learn to let go. When a project dies, it can feel like a part of you is dying. You poured time into it, energy, thought, heart. You saw a future in it, and now that future is gone. You feel lost. You ask, was it all for nothing? But that's the wrong question. Nothing is wasted if you're willing to learn from it. Just like the death of a person reminds us to be grateful for life, the death of a project reminds us to be grateful for the effort, for the lessons, for the courage it took to try. You can mourn the ending, you can feel the loss, but you don't need to carry it like a wound. Carry it like a memory. Marcus Aurelius said, "What dies doesn't vanish, it changes. It becomes part of the order of things." Your project didn't fail. It served its purpose. It taught you. It tested you. It showed you something about yourself. And now it's time to move on. Don't keep something alive just because you fear judgment. Don't hold on just because you're afraid of starting over. There is no shame in stopping. The shame is in clinging to something that no longer serves your values. The Stoic does not cry out when a leaf falls in autumn. He understands it was meant to fall, just as certain paths are meant to end. The project may have failed in the world's eyes. It may not have brought money, attention, or results. But did it make you stronger? Did it stretch your mind? Did it demand discipline and creativity? Then it was never a waste. It was a step. And steps are how we grow. So when something you built begins to fall apart, don't panic. Don't rush to fix what doesn't want to be saved. Take a breath, step back, and ask yourself, is this the natural end? If it is, honor it. Close it with the same care you began it. Let it go, not with bitterness, but with peace. You cannot control how long something lasts. You can only control how you show up for it while it lives, and how you say goodbye when it's time to release it. Grieve if you need to. Reflect if you must. But don't let the end of one thing become the end of your will. The Stoic moves forward, always. Not with haste, but with purpose. Not with regret, but with wisdom. So remember this. Projects will come and go. Goals will rise and fall. Ideas will bloom and fade. But the person you are becoming through it all, that is what endures. Let go, begin again, and keep walking. Number 13. Remember the uselessness of if only, and free yourself from the weight of what can't be changed. If only I had started earlier. If only I hadn't made that mistake. If only they had stayed. These are the thoughts that haunt us in the quiet moments, the thoughts that loop endlessly in the mind, offering nothing but regret dressed as reflection. And yet we feed them. We give them energy. We let them live in our heads and shape our moods, our stories, our sense of identity. But the truth is simple, and the Stoics saw it clearly. If only is a lie, a trap, a thief. It steals your focus, your strength, your presence. It offers you no power, only poison. You can't undo what has already been done. You can't go back and take a different path. You can't rewind time and choose another word, another action, another moment. What happened, happened. And the more you replay it, the more it plays you. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." That includes the past. You cannot alter it. You cannot bend it. You cannot trade it for something else. But what you can do, what you must do, is use it. Learn from it. Accept it without resentment. Carry it without shame. The phrase, "if only," is often used by people who haven't yet learned how to forgive themselves. It's the sound of someone trying to bargain with time, trying to escape responsibility, or clinging to an old version of themselves they cannot get back. But the Stoic doesn't look backward to complain. They look backward to understand, and then they move forward, one clear step at a time. There's nothing useful about sitting in the ashes of your mistakes, whispering what could have been. The moment is already gone. The door has already closed. The words have already been said. So what now? That's the question. What now? You're not here to be perfect. You're here to live with awareness. And that means seeing the past clearly, but not living inside it. That means taking the hit, owning the lesson, and stepping forward with deeper clarity. Not with bitterness, not with guilt, but with the calm strength of someone who no longer needs to rewrite the story. They simply write the next chapter. Seneca said, "He suffers more than necessary who suffers before it is necessary." But many suffer endlessly over moments that are already done. It's like carrying a heavy bag through a desert, long after you've emptied it. You're still tired, still weighed down, but there's nothing left inside. It's time to put it down, not because the past didn't matter, but because it's no longer yours to change. So when you catch yourself saying, "if only," pause, breathe, replace it with something stronger, something stoic. Say, "Even now. Even now I can learn. Even now I can rise. Even now I can move forward." That is power. That is growth. That is presence. There is no virtue in punishment. There is no honor in replaying regret. But there is great strength in acceptance. There is peace in saying, "It happened. I accept it. I'm still here. I move forward." So let go of "if only." Let go of the version of you that needed things to be different. Embrace the version of you that knows how to walk through what is, not what might have been. That is the Stoic way. And remember, the past cannot be changed, but you can, and that is more than enough. Number 14. Know that opinion is the real tyrant, and reclaim your mind from its rule. Look around you. So many people are not living their own lives. They're living for approval, living to be liked, living under the silent rule of other people's opinions. And the worst part? They don't even realize it. They've become prisoners, but not to chains or laws. They are prisoners to thoughts that don't belong to them. You want to say something, but you hesitate. You want to try something, but you pause. you feel the fear rising, not because what you're doing is wrong, but because someone might disapprove, someone might judge, someone might misunderstand. And just like that, your freedom is gone. The Stoics saw this clearly. They understood that the most powerful tyrant is not a king or a general. It's the fear of what others think, that invisible pressure, that constant need to be accepted, that whisper in your mind saying, "What will they say?" That is the tyrant, and it rules more people than any emperor ever did. Marcus Aurelius was the most powerful man in the world, but even he had to remind himself daily not to be ruled by reputation. He wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." Read that again. It's not just a quote, it's a mirror. You trust your mind to think, you trust your body to move, but when it comes to choice, real choice, you hand it over to the crowd. You obey their silence, you avoid their judgment, you let their imagined voices control your actions. But what do you really owe them? Opinion is wind. It shifts, it flips, it forgets. The same people who praise you today will criticize you tomorrow. And not because you changed, because they did. Because moods change, tastes change, trends change. That is the nature of opinion. It has no anchor. So why let it steer your ship? The Stoic knows that peace doesn't come from being liked. It comes from living in line with reason. You do what's right, not because someone's watching, but because it's the right thing to do. You speak the truth, not because it will be well received, but because it must be spoken. You walk your path, not because others understand it, but because it is your path, and no one else can walk it for you. So how do you break free from the tyrant of opinion? You start by seeing it for what it is. Just a thought, not a law, not a fact, just someone else's passing idea about you. And once you stop needing it, you begin to live. It won't be easy. The need to be accepted is deep. It's ancient, but the Stoic trains for this. Every day, you test yourself. You speak up even when your voice shakes. You act even when no one claps. You take the step not because it's popular, but because it's right. And when the opinions come, and they will, you let them pass like clouds. You don't fight them. You don't chase them. You simply stand firm, unmoved. Remember this. The real tyrant does not sit on a throne. It sits in your mind, and it will rule you until you stop listening. So today, live by your own reason. Choose your values over their opinions. Walk free, not because the world allowed it, but because you no longer asked for permission. Number 15. Practice silent withdrawal and protect the peace the world tries to steal. There are times when the world becomes too loud, too many opinions, too much performance, too many conversations that go nowhere. You feel it, the pull to respond, to explain, to defend, to prove something. But the Stoic path isn't always about confronting. Sometimes it's about stepping back, not in weakness, but in strength, not in silence out of fear, but in silence out of wisdom. There is power in withdrawal, especially when it's done without drama, without announcement, and without anger. Just a quiet return to yourself. Just a clean, still decision to no longer give your energy to noise. Seneca warned us about unnecessary conflict, about entering debates that don't matter, about wasting time with people who feed on attention and chaos. He reminded us that silence is not retreat, it's refinement. It is the practice of keeping your mind clear and your soul calm. It is the art of choosing not to respond, not because you have nothing to say, but because what you could say doesn't need to be said. Silent withdrawal is a form of discipline. It's not just walking away from a situation, it's rising above it. It's watching someone try to provoke you and feeling nothing. It's hearing a false rumor and not rushing to correct it. It's being misunderstood and letting it be. Why? Because truth doesn't need to shout. Dignity doesn't chase approval. And a steady mind doesn't jump into every fire it sees. This kind of silence is not emptiness. It's a boundary. It's a signal to yourself and to the world. I do not waste my peace. You don't have to cut people off with harsh words. You don't have to win every argument. You don't have to teach every person a lesson. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is walk away without a single sound. No explanation. No need to be right. Just the quiet knowledge that your energy is too valuable to spill on things beneath you. Marcus Aurelius dealt with critics, with betrayal, with politics, with people who tried to twist his words and question his actions, but he didn't throw tantrums. He didn't react with emotion. He returned to stillness. Again and again, he wrote to himself, reminding his mind to stay inward, to stay focused, to let the outer noise fade into nothing. This is what you must train, not the ability to speak, but the ability to not speak when speaking is just noise. Not the ability to win fights, but the ability to never step into them at all. Your ego may scream, say something, but your reason whispers, let it pass. And if you listen to that whisper long enough, you'll start to feel the weight fall off your shoulders. You'll stop feeling the need to correct everything. You'll stop living in constant defense. You'll stop giving power to people who don't even know themselves. So practice this in small moments. When someone talks over you, let them. When someone mocks you, let them. When the world pulls you to react, don't. Just withdraw, quietly, calmly. Return to your task. Return to your values. Return to the still core within you that no one else can reach. Remember, silence doesn't mean you're defeated. It means you've already won the battle within. Because the person who needs to shout has already lost control. But the one who can stay silent, especially when silence is hardest, is already free. So don't just walk away. Withdraw inward. Let others wonder. Let the world guess. And while they speak, you'll be building. While they shout, you'll be sharpening. While they waste their energy, you'll be guarding yours. That is the power of silent withdrawal. That is the discipline of the Stoic. No need for applause, no need for vengeance, just calm, just clarity, just control. Number 16. Compare yourself only to the sage and stop chasing shadows. You scroll, you watch, you listen. You see others winning, speaking, building, achieving, and without even realizing it, a voice starts whispering in your mind. You should be further by now. You should be doing more. You should be like them. And suddenly, you feel small. Not because you're not growing, but because you're measuring yourself against someone else's path. Comparison is poison when aimed in the wrong direction. It turns progress into pressure. It turns self-reflection into self-doubt. And in the modern world, it's everywhere. You are surrounded by images of perfection, by stories told from the outside, by highlight reels dressed up as truth. But the Stoics warned against this trap. They didn't measure themselves by the world's applause. They didn't chase status. They didn't compete with the crowd. They measured themselves against the only thing that mattered: virtue. And that's what the sage represents. The sage isn't a real person with a name or a face. The sage is an ideal, a model of wisdom, strength, justice, temperance, courage. A picture of the human soul fully aligned with reason. When the Stoics felt lost, they didn't look outward. they looked toward the sage, not to feel small, but to remember what was possible, not to compare for ego, but to return to principle. When you compare yourself to others, you're always off balance. You don't know their full story. You don't know what they sacrificed. You don't know if what they've built is even aligned with peace. But when you compare yourself to the sage, you are not seeking to win. You are seeking to grow. The question becomes not, am I better than them? But, am I more honest than I was yesterday? More focused, more disciplined, closer to the kind of person I know I could become? That is the right comparison, not with your neighbor, not with your rival, not with your past or your future, but with the ideal, the best version of a human being that reason can imagine. And here's the humbling truth. You will never become the perfect sage. Not fully. You will stumble. You will fall short. But that's the point. The sage gives you a compass, not a finish line. You don't need to arrive. You just need to walk in the right direction. When you measure yourself against the sage, your focus shifts. You no longer care how you look. You care how you are. You stop chasing approval and start seeking alignment. You stop comparing incomes, followers, titles, and start asking, am I living with integrity? Am I doing the right thing even when no one sees? That is where peace lives, not in winning the race, but in realizing there was no race at all, only the quiet path of character. So the next time you feel that pull, that urge to measure yourself against someone else, pause, step back, and remember the sage. Remember that you were never meant to be anyone else. You were meant to become yourself, forged in the fire of discipline and guided by the wisdom of reason. And when you slip, when you fail, when you fall short, don't sink into shame. Don't spiral into comparison. Simply ask, what would the sage do now? And do that. In that moment, you are becoming. Number 17. Embrace the logic of detachment. Mid-process, and let go before the outcome arrives. You begin something important. A plan, a project, a goal you've poured your heart into. In the beginning, your mind is calm, your purpose is clear, you know why you started. But then something happens. The longer you work, the more pressure you feel. The more you invest, the more you start gripping the outcome with white knuckles. You attach, you expect. You start thinking not about what you're doing, but what you'll get. And that's when fear creeps in. That's when your peace starts to slip away. That's when failure begins to hurt, before it's even happened. The Stoics knew this trap. They knew that attachment to the result destroys the quality of the process. You start out free, but somewhere along the way, you become chained, not by others, but by your own hopes, your own fantasies, your need for things to go your way. And so the Stoic trains not just to let go of results after they've arrived, but to detach while still in motion. This is the discipline, to act with full effort and yet hold the result with an open hand, to pour yourself into the work while preparing to accept whatever comes without bitterness or pride. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have embarked, you have set sail. Now let the wind blow wherever it pleases." Meaning, you do your duty, you steer your ship, but you don't command the sea. You must practice this daily, mid-process, mid-effort. When you've already given your time, your sweat, your attention, step back. Breathe. Remember, the result does not belong to you. Your job is the effort, the intention, the clarity. The rest is not yours to hold. This detachment is not laziness. It is not indifference. It is the highest form of trust. It is trust in the structure of the universe. It is trust in your own integrity. It is knowing that a good life is not one filled only with success, but one filled with strength, regardless of the outcome. Seneca said, "The wise man is content with his condition, whatever it may be." But this contentment isn't born at the finish line. It must be practiced in the middle, when things are still uncertain. That is the test. Can you remain grounded when there is still more to do, still more to lose, still more to risk? Most people wait to let go. They say, "I'll release the outcome once it's over." But by then, it has already shaped them, already controlled them, already owned them. The Stoic chooses to detach now, in motion, in struggle, in uncertainty. That is freedom. So when you're in the middle of something important, pause. Remind yourself, I am not here to guarantee results. I am here to give my best. That is all. That is enough. If it succeeds, I remain the same. If it fails, I remain the same. I do not rise or fall with the outcome. I rise and fall with my discipline. And you must remember, even a perfect process can lead to loss. Even the purest effort can be met with silence. That does not mean you failed. It means you are not the master of outcomes. You are the steward of intention. And intention, once planted, is never wasted. So whatever you're doing, writing, building, leading, creating, detach now, not later, now. Let go mid-process. Work as if it matters, but let go as if it doesn't. That is the balance. That is the peace. That is the Stoic way. You are not the result. You are the reason. Number 18. View failures as exercises and use them to strengthen your soul. Failure hurts. No one denies that. When the plan doesn't work, when the door closes, when your best effort still leads to loss, it stings. The ego trembles. The mind floods with doubt. The heart asks, was it all for nothing? But the Stoic does not flinch. The Stoic does not run. Because the Stoic understands something that changes everything. Failure is not punishment. It is practice. When you go to the gym and lift a heavy weight, your muscles strain, tear, and rebuild stronger. The pain is part of the process. You don't avoid it. You expect it. You don't see it as a sign of weakness. You see it as growth. Why should the soul be any different? The Stoics viewed every failure as a training ground, a controlled environment, a deliberate test sent by life to build the mind, the character, the will. You didn't get what you wanted? Good. Now you get to practice patience. Someone rejected your idea? Good. Now you get to practice humility. You made a mistake and had to face the consequences? Good. Now you get to practice resilience. These are not just things that happened. These are exercises, and they are working you into shape, if you allow them to. Epictetus said, "Difficulties show what men are, not what they claim to be, not what they appear to be, but what they are when it matters, when things don't go their way, when the outcome doesn't match the effort. That is where the real test begins. That is where the training gets serious." But most people never get past the surface. They see failure and label it as the end. They take it personally. They stop trying. They protect themselves from pain by avoiding effort. But the Stoic sees it differently. The Stoic leans in, listens, studies. The Stoic asks, what is this trying to teach me? Because in that question lies the key, not just to recovery, but to transformation. You are not defined by your results. You are defined by what you do after those results. Will you quit? Will you shrink? Or will you study the failure like an athlete studies film? Will you treat it like a sparring partner, tough but useful? Because once you start viewing failure this way, it no longer owns you. It becomes fuel. Some days the lesson is patience. Some days it's control over anger. Some days it's learning to rebuild after things fall apart. But every day there is a lesson, if you're willing to see it. That's why failure is never final. It's just the next exercise, the next drill, the next set. Marcus Aurelius faced wars, betrayal, sickness, and the slow unraveling of an empire. But he never complained. He trained. In his journal, he didn't write about how unfair it all was. He wrote about how every obstacle was a step in his discipline, a reminder to stay strong, stay clear, stay inwardly free. You must do the same. When failure comes, and it will, don't waste it. Don't numb it. Don't flee from it. Treat it like a teacher. Hold it up to the light. Say to yourself, this too is part of my training. I may not have chosen it, but I will use it. And then move forward. Not bitter, not broken, but wiser. Because at the end of the day, that's what failure really is. Practice for the soul. And the Stoic never skips practice. Number 19. Memorize your fallibility and free yourself from the illusion of perfection. You make mistakes. You forget things. You misunderstand. You react too quickly. You speak when you should stay silent. You stay silent when you should speak. And afterward you feel it, that sting of embarrassment, that weight of guilt, that voice in your head whispering, you should have known better. But what if that voice is wrong? What if you weren't supposed to be perfect? What if you were supposed to fail and learn? The Stoics never pretended to be flawless. They didn't walk through life with pride in their own wisdom. They walked carefully, humbly, aware that they too were capable of slipping, of falling, of being wrong, even when their intentions were right. And they didn't just acknowledge their fallibility, they memorized it. They reminded themselves of it daily, not to weaken their confidence, but to sharpen their character. Marcus Aurelius wrote again and again to himself, I am a soul with a body that is weak, prone to error, easily led astray. He didn't write this to self-punish. He wrote it so he wouldn't be surprised when he made a mistake. So he wouldn't be broken by failure. So he wouldn't think too highly of himself on the days when things were going well. Memorizing your fallibility does something powerful. It softens your judgments. It deepens your patience. It silences your ego. You stop needing to be right all the time. You stop pretending you have it all figured out. You stop chasing perfection, and instead, you start chasing improvement. Not for praise, but for principle. Most people carry a secret belief that they shouldn't fail, that if they just try hard enough, think hard enough, care hard enough, they'll always get it right. But the Stoic knows better. You are not a god. You are not above error. You are a human being, and being human means slipping, stumbling, forgetting, overreaching, and that's okay. What matters is not the mistake, but how you respond. You fall, so get up. You speak out of emotion, so apologize. You miss the mark, so aim better next time. That is strength. That is virtue. Not the illusion of flawlessness, but the ability to fall without losing yourself. Memorizing your fallibility also protects you from pride. Because when success comes, when things work out, when you win, it's easy to believe it's because you're superior, smarter, wiser. But the Stoic stops that thought in its tracks. He reminds himself, I am still capable of error. Even in my best moment, I am not immune to weakness. That reminder doesn't dim the victory. It simply keeps you grounded. It keeps you from turning your success into arrogance. It also gives you patience with others. When you know how easy it is to be wrong, you stop expecting others to be perfect. You stop lashing out when someone disappoints you. You start seeing mistakes not as offenses, but as signs of shared humanity. And that makes you stronger, kinder, wiser. So say it to yourself often: I am fallible. I am capable of being wrong. And that is not shameful. It is simply true. It does not make me less. It makes me honest. And with that honesty, I can grow. I can recover. I can improve. I can try again. You don't need to fear your mistakes. You need to prepare for them, accept them, learn from them, and then move forward. Cleaner, calmer, more aware than you were yesterday. Because the goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to be principled even when you fall short. So memorize your fallibility, not so you'll feel small, but so you'll never forget the quiet courage it takes to rise again and again with clear eyes and an honest heart. Number 20. Turn judgment into a daily cleanse and free your mind from hidden poison. Every day, thoughts pass through your mind like clouds through the sky. Some are light, some are heavy, some come and go, others linger. But the ones that stay, those quiet judgments, subtle assumptions, silent complaints, begin to shape how you see the world. And over time, if you're not careful, they distort your vision. You start to confuse your opinion with truth. You start reacting to what you think is happening instead of what actually is. And the result is frustration, misunderstanding, resentment, a mind filled with dust. But the Stoics had a habit, a ritual really, a way to clear the mind like one would clean a wound or sweep a floor. They called it judgment, not in the way the world uses it, to condemn, to label, to divide, but in the deeper, quieter sense, the judgment of your own thoughts, the ability to stop, look inward, and ask, is this thought true? Is it useful? Is it based on reason or just reaction? Because most of what causes your suffering doesn't come from life itself. It comes from the meaning you attach to it. Someone interrupts you, you say it was disrespect. Someone doesn't text back, you say it's rejection. A plan changes, you say it's failure. But none of that is fact. That is your judgment. And judgment can be wrong. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every morning and every night, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That was his cleanse. Not with soap, but with clarity. Not with water, but with reason. He knew that a dirty mind is not one filled with bad thoughts. It's one filled with unexamined thoughts. You must do the same. Make it a discipline. Make it a part of your day, like brushing your teeth or locking your door. Sit in stillness, even for a minute, and look at what you've been carrying. The anger, the envy, the story you told yourself about that one moment, the thing you replayed over and over as if it had the power to define you. Bring it out. Hold it to the light. Ask, is this real? Or did I create this suffering with my own judgment? The Stoics believed that the mind must be trained daily, like the body, like the will, not with shame, not with panic, but with calm attention. The goal is not perfection. The goal is clarity. Because once you start separating your thoughts from reality, you begin to see the world as it is, not as fear paints it, not as ego distorts it, but as reason reveals it. And here's the beauty of this discipline. The more you practice it, the lighter you feel. Not because life gets easier, but because your mind no longer makes it harder. You stop being dragged around by every emotion. You stop jumping to conclusions. You stop poisoning your peace with assumptions that were never tested, never questioned. Instead, you begin to move with precision. You pause before reacting. You examine before assuming. You speak only after you've seen clearly. And in that stillness, in that clarity, in that honest judgment, you begin to free yourself. So make this a ritual. Each day, ask yourself, what thoughts today deserve to stay? Which ones need to be let go? Don't rush. Don't resist. Just cleanse. Because a clean mind is not an empty one. It's a mind that sees truth without the fog of illusion. And that is the kind of mind the Stoic lives by. Number 21. Use the cloak strategy and let simplicity shield your strength. There's a moment in every Stoic's life when they must decide whether they will live for appearance or for truth, whether they will clothe themselves in armor made of approval or wear something lighter, something quieter, something more real. That's where the cloak strategy begins. Epictetus told the story of a philosopher who wore an old, worn-out cloak, not because he couldn't afford better, not because he was making a statement, but because the cloak still did its job. It kept him warm, it served its function, and that was enough. He didn't dress to impress, he didn't decorate himself for applause, he simply chose what worked and let the rest fall away. That is the cloak strategy, to live below the noise, to appear less so you can focus more, to be underestimated, overlooked, even ignored, while your strength builds silently beneath the surface. You don't need to show off. You don't need the flash. You don't need to advertise your growth, your goodness, your effort. The Stoic way is not about being seen. It is about being real. And the more you need to be seen, the more likely you are to live for the crowd. But the one who hides behind a humble cloak, literal or not, is free. Free from vanity, free from comparison, free from chasing recognition. Think about how much energy people spend curating their image. They decorate their lives like storefronts, hoping others will stop and admire. But the Stoic walks by uninterested, not because they lack ambition, but because their ambition is directed inward. They know the only life worth building is the one built on character, not decoration. And they know that strength needs no announcement. So what does this look like in your life? It means showing up to work without needing everyone to notice your effort. It means training your body, your mind, your discipline, not so you can post about it, but because it makes you better. It means letting someone else take credit if it means the mission moves forward. It means choosing the simple thing, the functional thing, the quiet thing, even when the world pushes you to show more, prove more, be more visible. Because the moment you adopt the cloak strategy, a shift happens. You start to feel light. You stop worrying about being misunderstood. You stop needing to defend yourself. You stop performing. And in that space, you begin to live. Seneca warned that luxury weakens the mind, that constant concern with image corrupts judgment. But simplicity, that's where clarity is found. And the cloak strategy isn't just about clothes. It's about tone. It's about posture. It's about walking through the world with no need to be impressive because you're already at peace with who you are. This doesn't mean you shrink. It means you anchor. You stop rising and falling based on what others see. You stop shaping your life to fit into a version someone else might admire. You become intentional, quiet, strong, and in a world that rewards noise, your silence becomes a kind of rebellion. So, start today. Stop polishing what doesn't matter. Stop trying to shine in places that don't deserve your light. Wrap yourself in a metaphorical cloak, one made of purpose, simplicity, and indifference to praise. Walk lightly. Speak only what is needed. Work deeply, whether or not anyone sees. Because when you live like that, you discover a kind of power most people never touch, the kind that doesn't fade, the kind that doesn't need validation, the kind that knows true strength doesn't need to be dressed up, it just needs to be lived. Number 22. Treat criticism like a wind, and stay rooted no matter how hard it blows. People will talk. That's the first truth you must accept. No matter what you do, whether you succeed or fail, whether you stay quiet or speak out, whether you walk the well-worn path or carve your own, they will talk. They will judge. They will misunderstand you, mislabel you, and sometimes mock you. You can't control that. You never could. But what you can control is how you respond. The Stoics knew this deeply. They saw criticism for what it is, not a threat, but a test. Not a truth, but a force. And like the wind, it comes and goes. You cannot stop the wind, but you can stand still in it. You can hold your ground. You can bend if needed, but you do not have to break. Most people spend their lives chasing praise and running from criticism. They shape their actions not by principle, but by public opinion. And when criticism comes, it knocks them off their center. It ruins their day, shatters their focus, and shakes their confidence. But this only happens because they've forgotten where their worth comes from. They've placed it in the hands of others, people who do not know them, people who do not live their life, people who will never walk in their shoes. The Stoic doesn't do that. The Stoic treats criticism like weather. It might be cold, it might sting, but it passes. And while it passes, the Stoic remains grounded, not in pride, but in reason. The Stoic asks, is it true? If it is, they thank it and improve. If it is not, they release it and move on. That is the discipline. Marcus Aurelius wrote, I do not concern myself with what others think of me, for I have to live with myself, not with them. That is not arrogance, that is clarity, because what others say belongs to them. What you choose to believe belongs to you. So when someone criticizes you, whether it's loud or subtle, fair or unfair, pause. Don't react. Don't explain yourself just to be liked. Don't strike back just to protect your ego. Breathe. Let the words pass through you. Ask yourself calmly, is there something useful here? And if there is, use it. Let it sharpen you. Let it refine you. And if there's nothing useful, discard it like smoke in the wind. You don't have to harden your heart to criticism. You just have to loosen its grip on your identity. You don't need to be immune to feedback. You need to be free from needing it to feel whole. Remember this, the tallest trees are not the ones that avoid the wind. They are the ones that grew in the wind, the ones that learned to bend, to sway, to endure. Your goal is not to hide from judgment. Your goal is to grow stronger in the presence of it. So let the criticism come, let the voices rise, let the winds blow, and you stay rooted, stay clear, stay focused on what is yours to control, your effort, your virtue, your path, because the storm always passes. Number 23. Ask the "What will I become?" question and measure every choice by the person it shapes. Every day you make decisions, some big, some small, but all of them are shaping you. Every action is a brushstroke on the canvas of who you are becoming. And the Stoics understood, life is not built in the loud moments, the public ones, the dramatic ones. Life is built in the quiet spaces, in the thoughts you allow, in the habits you repeat, in the compromises you tolerate. That's why they trained themselves to ask a simple question before every choice. What will I become if I do this? Not, will this be fun? Not, will this impress someone? Not, will this give me an edge? But, what kind of person does this action make me into? That is the real test. That is the real weight behind every decision. Because you are always becoming something. And the question is, what? If you lie, you are becoming someone who lies. If you delay what matters, you are becoming someone who avoids duty. If you indulge weakness, even when no one is watching, you are becoming someone ruled by comfort. That's how it happens. Quietly, slowly. Not in one moment, but in 1,000. And if you don't stop and ask, what will I become? You'll wake up one day shaped by habits you didn't choose, living with a character you never meant to build. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, but he didn't care about titles. He cared about virtue. He reminded himself constantly, what is the thing I am doing, and what kind of soul does it leave behind? Because power fades, fame fades, everything fades, except the kind of person you are. So next time you're faced with a decision, no matter how small, pause, look deeper. Don't just ask, what happens if I do this? Ask, what does this make me? That one question strips away illusion. It reveals motives. It slows you down. It makes you conscious. And it puts you back in control of your own becoming. You have to understand, your life is not a series of disconnected actions. It is a direction, a path, a pattern, and every step you take is either moving you closer to the person you're meant to be or pulling you further away. Ask the question when you're tempted to take the shortcut. Ask it when you want to skip the workout. Ask it when you want to speak in anger. Ask it when you want to give in to fear. What will I become if I act on this? Who will I become if I choose differently? And remember, the answer may not always feel good. Growth rarely does. But it will always give you clarity, and that clarity is freedom. Because once you start thinking this way, you stop chasing outcomes. You stop chasing moments. You start shaping a life, and that life begins to reflect something stronger than success. It begins to reflect strength itself. So carry this question with you. Fold it into your mornings. Whisper it to yourself before you respond. Let it be the compass you return to when the world tries to pull you off course. Because what you become in the dark, in the quiet, in the unnoticed hours, that is who you are. And the person you become, that is your legacy. So, choose wisely. Number 24. Imagine explaining the failure to a Stoic god, and ask yourself if your excuse still holds. There are moments when failure brings you to your knees. The project didn't work. The risk didn't pay off. You gave your best, or so you think, and still you came up short. The shame creeps in. The blame starts circling. You tell yourself the timing was wrong, the world was unfair, other people got in the way. And maybe you even believe that. But stop. Before you run to another excuse, do something harder. Ask yourself this. What if you had to explain this failure? Not to a friend, not to a mentor, but to a Stoic god. Not a god of reward or punishment. Not a god who demands sacrifice or ritual, but a God of reason, of virtue, of discipline, a God who sees through every excuse, every performance, every hidden fear, a God who cannot be fooled because it lives inside you, in that quiet place that knows when you are lying to yourself. Now imagine standing before that God. Imagine looking it in the eye and trying to explain why you didn't follow through, why you quit halfway, why you hesitated, why you let fear take the wheel. Would your story hold up? Would your words sound honest or hollow? This is not to shame you. This is to wake you up. Because the Stoic God does not punish you for falling short. It simply holds up a mirror. It asks you to examine the real reason, not the convenient one, not the one that makes you feel better, the real one. And often, when you're honest, the reason is this: you were afraid, or you were undisciplined, or you wanted comfort more than growth, or you just didn't care enough to push one more time. That's what this exercise is for. It is not about judgment, it's about truth. And truth is what makes you free. Marcus Aurelius spoke often of the gods as partners in reason, not beings to beg, but principles to live by. He reminded himself that everything he did, every action, every thought, was being watched by that deeper part of himself, the part that didn't care for applause, only for alignment. When you imagine explaining your failure to a Stoic God, you remove the noise, you remove the politics, you remove the story. What's left is the raw question: did I do what was right? What was in my power? What was required of me? If the answer is yes, then your failure is noble. It becomes part of your training. But if the answer is no, then now you know. And now you can begin again. Because the Stoic God does not demand perfection. It demands honesty. It asks only that you live by what you claim to believe, that you try, that you show up, that you face life without hiding. So when you stumble, when you fall, when things don't go your way, don't waste time crafting stories. Don't blame fate. Sit in silence. Ask yourself, if I had to explain this to a force that sees everything in me, every intention, every doubt, every effort, would I be proud of my answer? And if not, good. You've just uncovered the path forward. Because in the end, the judgment of others fades. But the judgment of your own conscience, the part of you that sees clearly and speaks quietly, that stays. And when you begin to live not for praise, not for defense, but for that deeper audience, you stop fearing failure. You stop fearing anything. Number 25. Anchor in the present, not projection, and find peace where your feet are. Your mind is always moving. Even when your body is still, your thoughts are racing forward, into the future, into the unknown. What will happen if you fail? What if they laugh? What if it all falls apart? You build stories that haven't happened yet and suffer from things that don't exist. You imagine outcomes you cannot control, conversations that may never happen, disasters that live only in your head. And you wonder why you feel anxious, why you freeze, why you doubt yourself before you even begin. But the Stoics knew something most people forget. You don't live in tomorrow. You live here, in this moment, this breath, this step. The future is a story. The present is a fact. And you will only ever act from where you are, not from where you think you'll be. Projection is a thief. It steals your focus. It clouds your judgment. It takes the simple act of doing and turns it into a maze of what-ifs. You start a task, and suddenly you're thinking about the results. You speak a truth, and immediately your mind jumps to how it might be received. You prepare, but never act, because you're stuck trying to predict everything instead of simply doing the next right thing. To anchor yourself in the present is to return to what is real: your breath, your choice, your effort. The Stoics trained themselves to look only at what was in front of them, not the outcome, not the opinion, just the duty, just the work. Because when you stay here, in the moment, you remember how much power you truly have. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet reminded himself constantly to stay present. "Don't let the future disturb you," he wrote. "You'll meet it, if you must, with the same weapons of reason you have today." That is the mindset. Not passive, not naive, but focused, rooted, prepared to face whatever comes, not by thinking it to death, but by acting with clarity now. Failure is not defeated by overthinking it. It is defeated by meeting the moment with courage. That moment could be sitting down to write, making the call, starting the thing you've delayed for months, speaking up, taking the step. Whatever it is, your power lies in the now, not in the projection of what might happen, but in the presence of what is happening. And if fear tries to pull you forward, if your mind starts racing into all the ways this could go wrong, pause, breathe, ask yourself, is there something I must do right now? If there is, do it. If there isn't, release the thought. Let the projection float past like a cloud in the sky. It does not belong to you. When you anchor yourself in the present, something shifts. The pressure fades, the fear shrinks. Because now you're no longer trying to live 1,000 imaginary lives. You're just living one, clearly, fully, simply. And in that place, you are powerful, because you're no longer lost in stories. You're aligned with action. So return, again and again. When the mind wanders, return. When doubt rises, return. When you feel the need to control the uncontrollable, return. This moment is enough. This breath is enough. You are here, and that is where life is waiting. The future will come. Let it. You will meet it when it arrives. And when you do, you'll be ready. Not because you saw it coming, but because you stood firm in the present. That is where the Stoic lives, not in fear, not in fantasy. Right here, you've just walked through 25 Stoic strategies, each one a tool, a mindset, a challenge, to help you face fear, not with trembling, but with clarity. You've learned to rise early with purpose, to treat criticism like wind, to train in failure, to measure yourself only against virtue, to act without clinging to results, and to let go, again and again, of the noise that tries to control your soul. Now the path is yours. Not tomorrow, not someday. Now. Because courage is not something you find. It's something you build, step by step, breath by breath, failure by failure. And these 25 tools aren't just ideas, they are your armor. Use them. Now, I want to hear from you. In the comments, write, "I choose courage over comfort. I act with reason. I am stoic, not for me, not for others, but to make the commitment real. Because once you write it, it no longer lives in your mind. It begins to live in your actions." And if this resonated, if even one idea helped shift something inside you, subscribe to the channel. This is just the beginning. Together, we'll keep sharpening the mind, training the will, and walking the Stoic path, one strong step at a time. The fear may never disappear, but with reason, discipline, and courage, you will no longer obey it. Act now. Choose now. Become now. You don't really need anyone, or at least that's what it might seem like at first glance. Yes, friend, it may sound like a bold or even controversial statement in today's world, which is deeply immersed in social media, constant external validation, and a profound fear of loneliness. Yet, Stoic philosophy offers some valuable wisdom to counter this. You are enough as you are, your virtues, your flaws, and even those nagging doubts that sometimes keep you awake at night. The truth is, you don't need a partner to complete you, a friend to cheer you on, or an influencer on Instagram to guide your life. Everything required for your happiness is already within you. The challenge is learning how to be your own best companion. And though this journey may not be easy, it is certainly worth undertaking. In this video, I will share 10 lessons that will help you release the burden of depending on others. Along the way, you will discover how to become your own best ally, because once you master this, you won't find yourself needing anyone. If you're ready to take the first step, stay tuned for the last lesson, as it will leave you truly speechless. But before we dive in, let me share a story to help you understand the depth of wisdom in this material. Once upon a time, there was a man named Arturo who worked as a mechanic in a small workshop in his city. Arturo was well known for his exceptional skill with tools, but he was also known for relying heavily on others to make important decisions in his life. He often turned to his friends and family for advice before taking any significant step. One day, the owner of the workshop assigned him a challenging task: to repair a classic car that had been abandoned for years. Arturo, accustomed to seeking help, called a more experienced colleague, but received no answer. Desperate, he scoured through online videos and manuals, but none seemed to offer a solution. Frustrated and feeling isolated, he sat in front of the car and asked himself, "What would I do if there was no one else to turn to?" He began to examine the car closely, drawing on the knowledge he had gathered over the years, and started experimenting with solutions. Slowly, with patience and persistence, Arturo identified the faults and began fixing them. After hours of trial and error, he successfully repaired the car, and when he presented it to the owner, the man was astonished. "I thought you'd need help to fix it, but you did it on your own. How did you manage?" the owner asked. Arturo smiled and replied, "I realized that the best advice I can get is the one that comes from myself. When you trust your own ability to solve problems, you discover you have more tools than you ever imagined." The moral of this story is simple yet profound. In life, learning to trust yourself and your ability to face challenges is the key to true independence. It's not about never needing anyone, but knowing that when everything else fails, you can always rely on yourself. Now, before we dive into the lessons, I invite you to subscribe and activate notifications to keep up with all the latest updates. Let's begin with the first lesson. Learn to be your own best company. Have you ever felt like you need someone else to complete you? Maybe you've thought that if you had more friends, a more understanding partner, or the perfect job, your life would be infinitely better. But what if I told you that the real key to happiness isn't found outside of you, but deep within? Yes, it might sound like something out of a motivational book, but let me explain. True emotional independence, the kind that doesn't rely on anyone or anything, is a superpower that we can all develop. You might spend your life looking for someone who can complete you, but the reality is, the only person you truly need to feel whole and happy is yourself. It's not easy, I understand, but if you commit to it, you'll build such a strong relationship with yourself that no one else will be able to offer you what you already give yourself. This isn't about having a superficial relationship where you just look in the mirror and tell yourself, "I'm amazing." I'm talking about a deep connection that goes beyond your successes, your failures, or what others think of you. The Stoics practiced emotional self-sufficiency, and they believed that we don't need to depend on external circumstances to feel good about ourselves. This doesn't mean you become a hermit, shutting yourself off from the world. Rather, it means that when life doesn't go as planned, you can maintain your peace and inner calm without falling into chaos. Think about it like falling off your bike. Instead of crying about the scrape, you get up, smile, and keep going. That ability to bounce back quickly and not let anything or anyone knock you off balance is a skill you can develop. The key to achieving this is learning to enjoy your own company. Imagine yourself as a plant. If you rely entirely on rain or others for your survival, there will be times when you go without and you'll wither. But if you learn to extract water from the earth and become self-sufficient, it doesn't matter if it rains or not, you'll keep growing. This is the essence of inner strength. Not that you don't need others, but that you no longer depend on them for your sense of completeness. The path to this is simple. Make peace with your solitude and use that time to really understand yourself, to discover what makes you happy when no one else is watching. As the Stoics taught, reflection and introspection are essential tools for finding inner peace. And yes, it sounds cliché, but when you can be content with yourself, everything else will fall into place. The real lesson here is that true peace and happiness stem from your ability to be self-sufficient. Once you master the art of being enough for yourself, you'll realize that you never needed anyone else to feel whole. This doesn't mean you won't enjoy the company of others, but you won't rely on them for your happiness. Emotional independence is a gift you can give yourself. It's not achieved overnight, but with patience and practice, you can live fully without depending on external factors. As Epictetus said, "He who does not depend on anyone becomes the master of himself." Now, let's move on to the second lesson. Learn to say no. Have you ever felt like the weight of the world is on your shoulders? Like you're just a doormat for everyone to unload their problems onto? I'm sure you've been there, but the truth is, you don't have to keep being the person that everyone turns to for help. The key to breaking free from this is an incredibly simple yet powerful tool: learning to say no. Stoic philosophy teaches us something very basic but vital. While we can't control everything, we do have the power to decide what we allow into our lives and what we don't. Imagine you're a wall. I know it sounds boring, but bear with me. A wall is impenetrable, and after a while, anything that tries to come in becomes a burden you can't release. Now, think of yourself as having a boundary, not a wall. Boundaries are clearly defined, allowing what's necessary to pass through, but keeping out what doesn't serve you. It's not about isolating yourself from the world, it's about setting limits to protect your well-being. Saying no isn't about rejecting the person asking, it's about rejecting what they're asking for at that moment. It's about not compromising your peace to meet the expectations of others. You won't be less loved or more loved by saying no. In fact, by respecting yourself and your boundaries, you'll earn more respect from others. The next time someone asks you for something, ask yourself, is this really important to me? If the answer is no, then you don't have to do it. Don't complicate your response with excuses. Simply say, I can't do it right now, or it's not something I can do. People will ultimately respect your sincerity more than any well-crafted excuse. At the end of the day, It's up to you to decide who can cross your boundaries and who must remain outside them. This isn't about becoming unapproachable, but about safeguarding what truly matters: your time, energy, and peace of mind. The Stoics understood this well. Living with purpose and without being swayed by the external pressures that others place upon us is a courageous act. Begin today by practicing the art of saying no. And if someone criticizes you for it, remember that a wall doesn't change its shape because of what others say, but a boundary knows where it should stand. Seneca wisely said that freedom begins when you learn to set limits without feeling guilty. The power of self-esteem is a fragile thing. We often let ourselves be influenced by what others think of us. One comment, one look, and suddenly we're questioning ourselves. It's as if our self-worth becomes a house of cards, vulnerable to a single gust of wind. If you want to break free from this instability, it's time to build an unshakable self-esteem that doesn't collapse with the opinions of others. The Stoics provided us with the key to achieve this. We don't need anyone else to feel whole. Imagine standing in front of a mirror. This isn't just any mirror, but a magical one that reflects not just your appearance, but your thoughts. Do you see yourself for who you truly are? Or do you see yourself through the lens of how you wish others would see you? It's interesting how our self-esteem has become a distorted reflection shaped by external expectations, the gaze of others, their judgments, and the constant feedback from social media that tells us whether we are good or bad. It's difficult to remain calm when it feels as if the entire world has something to say about you. But what if I told you that true confidence has nothing to do with what others think of you? The Stoics knew this. Instead of clinging to the opinions of others like they were essential to our survival, they cultivated something far stronger: self-sufficiency. This ability to rely on oneself for validation is the foundation of unshakable self-esteem. To build this, there are a few crucial steps. The first is to accept your imperfection. Nobody is perfect, and if you think you can attain perfection, you are likely deceiving yourself. The Stoics knew this well. Perfection is a fantasy. Instead, it's about being wise in how we manage our emotions and reactions. The second step is to stop seeking external validation. If you're constantly searching for approval, you will find yourself stuck on a hamster wheel, running endlessly without ever reaching your destination. The Stoics practiced indifference to criticism, knowing that the only evaluation that truly matters is their own. When someone criticizes you, simply observe it and let their words slide off you like water over a stone. Another important step is to practice gratitude for yourself. If you are unable to recognize your own accomplishments, no one else will do it for you. Make space to thank yourself and celebrate your progress, no matter how small. Every step forward is a victory. Stoic philosophy emphasizes the importance of daily reflection, a kind of personal balance sheet where you are your own judge. You must become your own support system instead of relying on others to lift you up. Self-pity does not equate to complacency. It's about understanding that we all have low moments, but we are capable of rising above them without needing someone else to do it for us. When you achieve emotional independence, you realize that you do not need constant approval from others. Unbreakable self-esteem is not based on what others say about you, but on what you tell yourself. Learning to live without the constant need for external validation will make you freer, stronger, and more authentic. If you stop looking to others for what can only be found within, you will discover that you are more than enough just as you are. As Marcus Aurelius told us in his Meditations, True freedom begins when you stop seeking from others what only you can provide for yourself. Now, let's talk about when silence becomes your best advisor. Have you ever found yourself surrounded by noise, yet felt a deep emptiness? I'm not just referring to the constant hum of city life or the endless buzz of phone notifications. I'm talking about the internal noise that makes you feel as though you need more people, more opinions, more external validation. But what if I told you that everything you need is already right there in front of you, in that uncomfortable space you try to avoid? Silence. In its purest form, silence is often seen as a threat. It's the place where we face our own company, and like a mirror, it reflects our true selves. It can be terrifying to be alone with your thoughts, but it is precisely in these moments that clarity begins to appear. When the noise fades, we finally hear what we need to hear, what belongs to us, what truly matters. The Stoics, with their practical philosophy, understood that inner peace does not depend on external circumstances. We do not need constant external support or an avalanche of words to feel validated. They understood that true strength lies in the ability to find serenity even when the world is chaotic. Instead of clinging to what we cannot control, they embraced silence and solitude as powerful tools for introspection and personal growth. You may not have noticed, but every time you carve out a moment of genuine silence, you open the door to a world of possibility. Imagine being alone in an empty room with no distractions, no obligations, just you, your thoughts, and the space around you. At first, it might feel uncomfortable, even empty, but if you have the patience to stay in that silence, you will discover that it has something to offer. In that space, you can begin to question your own thoughts, emotions, and desires. You may ask yourself why you rely so heavily on external validation, or why you look for answers outside yourself. The truth is that when you learn to listen to your own silence, you realize that you don't need anyone else to find the answers you seek. It is in solitude that you truly discover who you are and what you need to be happy. This is the power of silence. It doesn't force you to be someone you're not. It allows you to simply be yourself. Now, this doesn't mean you should stop relating to others or become a hermit. The key is finding balance. Learning to be alone and in silence teaches you to be less dependent on the opinions of others and to trust your intuition. It helps you find peace within yourself. It's like learning to swim in calm waters. No matter how fierce the storm may rage outside, you remain safe in your own space. No one can take that peace away from you once you've learned how to cultivate it from within. If you find it difficult to make time for silence, start with small moments each day, just a few minutes without music, without phones, without conversations. Even these brief moments will teach you that you do not need the constant company of others to feel complete. Ultimately, the peace and clarity you seek are not outside of you. They are within, waiting to be discovered in silence. Though it's not an easy or immediate process, it is undoubtedly the path to a fuller and more authentic life. Learn to value solitude and silence, and you will see how the noise of the world becomes irrelevant. As a wise proverb says, true freedom begins when you learn to listen to what silence has to tell you. Finally, let's explore the power of being your own hero. Have you ever felt like you needed someone to pull you out of a tough situation? We've all been there. Life isn't always smooth sailing, and sometimes it seems like everything is falling apart. But what if I told you that you don't need anyone else to get you out of the mess you're in? Yes, I know it sounds like a crazy idea, But the truth is that everything you need is already within your grasp. We've been sold the idea that we need a hero, a powerful figure who will swoop in and save us when times get tough. Movies, books, and television constantly reinforce the belief that someone else with extraordinary abilities is always there to rescue us from our troubles. But that's just a fantasy. The hero you've been searching for is already inside you. Yes, it's easier said than done, but the Stoics offer us a valuable lesson. You cannot control everything that happens around you, but you do have control over how you respond to it. Stoic philosophy invites you to view challenges as opportunities to strengthen your character. Instead of waiting for someone to come and solve your problems, why not become the hero of your own life? You already have all the tools you need, you just need to use them. The first step is to stop expecting things to change magically. The world is not going to adjust itself to make things easier for you. While it's true that life is filled with difficulties, sometimes overwhelming ones, once you realize that the only thing you can truly control is your attitude, everything will shift. This is where the magic lies. You have the power to turn every difficulty into a lesson for personal growth. To start, recognize that you are responsible for your own life. Instead of looking around for someone else to solve your problems, look inward and ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I grow through this difficulty? Life will never be perfect, but at least you can control how you choose to respond. Make your challenges the raw material for your evolution. It won't always be easy, but that is the key difference between being a passive observer of your life and becoming the protagonist. Remember, power doesn't come from outside, it comes from within. If you let your thoughts and emotions control you, your life will always be at the mercy of what happens around you. But if you take control, you will become the hero of your own story, rising after every fall. There's no need to rely on someone else for strength. You already have everything you need to move forward. You just need to learn how to use it. Be the hero of your life without depending on anyone else for success. Life is yours, and only you have the power to decide what to do with it. So the next time you feel lost or in need of external help, remember that everything you need is right in front of you, your own strength. As Lao Tzu once said, the hero you seek won't come to save you because you were never in danger. You just needed to realize that you were always safe. Have you ever felt like you're carrying a huge weight on your shoulders even though you're surrounded by people? It's like carrying an invisible backpack full of stones, draining relationships, thoughts that never let you breathe, worries that add up to nothing. The good news is that you don't need anyone else to help you carry that burden. You can stop carrying that backpack on your own. This is where emotional minimalism comes in. But don't worry, I'm not talking about cutting people out of your life. I'm talking about learning to let go of what you really don't need. And believe me, it's not as complicated as it seems. Emotional minimalism is like doing a spring cleaning for your mind. You take a moment to assess what you've accumulated over time. Friendships that no longer bring you joy, thoughts that get stuck in your mind like an annoying song, or fears that make no sense. Stoic philosophy teaches the power of focusing only on what we can control, and that includes our emotions and relationships. If something or someone doesn't bring you peace, do you really need it in your life? Imagine being surrounded by people who constantly drain your energy. It's like being at a party where everyone is talking, but no one is listening. Every time you try to express yourself, someone adds more weight to your shoulders without you even realizing it. The worst part is that you get used to it, until one day you can't carry it any longer. The key is to identify the relationships and thoughts that steal your energy and learn how to let go of them without feeling guilty. So how can you start? The first step is to recognize if someone or something is leaving you drained. Start by questioning what it truly brings to your life. Sometimes we cling to things simply because we're used to them, but in reality, this extra weight is only holding us back. The same goes for expectations, those that tell us we need to be someone we're not or have something we don't. Here's the truth. You don't need all that. The Stoics understood this well. If you learn to free yourself from what you cannot control, you liberate yourself from unnecessary suffering. You don't need others to validate you or the world to bend to your wishes. Accepting that you are enough, just as you are, is a huge step. The next step is a bit radical but effective. Start saying no. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is learning to reject what doesn't serve you. It's not about being selfish, it's about protecting your energy. When you let go of what drains you, you create space for what truly nourishes you. So, how do you live without all the emotional baggage? Start by identifying what drains you and let go of what you don't need. Don't feel obligated to carry the expectations or emotions of others. In the end, the only thing you need in your life is what helps you become your best version. The rest is just noise. If you want to find peace, stop searching for it outside yourself. Look inward and let go of everything that hinders your happiness. The path to emotional minimalism is not easy, but with each step you will feel lighter and freer. As Brian Tracy once said, you don't need anyone else in your life to be happy, just yourself. Have you ever thought about what it really means to be free? I'm not talking about the freedom to do whatever you please, like skydiving or eating pizza at 3 a.m., though that certainly sounds fun. I'm talking about the real kind of freedom, freedom that allows you to live life on your own terms, without the pressure of a boss, a lender, or a credit card controlling your every move. That's the kind of freedom that financial autonomy provides. And as you may know, true freedom is not free. Want to be independent? You have to earn money and stop spending more than you have. The problem is, we're not talking about a video game where you can restart every time you fail. In real life, taking control of your finances is more like learning to ride a bike. At first, you fall and scrape your knees, and you might wonder if it's really worth it. But if you persevere, eventually, you'll be able to go wherever you want without depending on anyone else. First, you have to understand that financial freedom doesn't just happen on its own. It's not a gift someone hands to you in a box. The truth is, everyone who has achieved financial independence has worked hard to free themselves from the chains of money. There are no shortcuts. It's not just about earning more, it's about managing what you already have. This is where Stoic philosophy comes in, accepting that life isn't always easy, but the key lies in how we respond to difficulties. The Stoics knew that the true source of freedom is controlling what we can control, and you, my friend, can control your finances. Start by making a realistic budget. I know it might sound boring, but think of your life like a game of chess and your budget as your strategy. Without it, you're just moving pieces without purpose. When you know exactly how much money is coming in and going out, you take the first step in making money work for you rather than the other way around. Get rid of debt as if it were a parasite. Debts can sneak into your life without you even noticing, and before you know it, they've become the worst kind of tenant, staying longer than they should. Do your best to eliminate them as quickly as possible. Invest in your future, because financial independence isn't achieved just by saving. You need to make your money work for you. This doesn't mean rushing into stocks without understanding them, but over time, you'll realize that if you do it right, your money can grow, just like a well-watered plant. Be mindful of your spending. There's nothing sadder than living on autopilot, spending money on unnecessary things. If you learn to say no to those impulsive purchases, you'll be taking significant steps toward financial autonomy. Remember, what you don't see, you won't spend. Being free doesn't mean having piles of money under your mattress. It means having control of your finances and not depending on anyone to keep you afloat. Most importantly, it means having the power to make decisions without worrying about the economic consequences. Financial independence is not something that is simply handed to you. It is a decision, a journey that requires careful, consistent effort. It is something you must gradually build, step by step, through dedication, sacrifice, and strict discipline. True freedom, in its purest sense, cannot be bought or traded. It is earned. This is a truth that I am here to share with you, my friend. Real freedom doesn't come from what you own, but from your ability to manage what you have. Your happiness is not determined by others, but by how you control and manage your own thoughts, actions, and emotions. It is quite fascinating how, almost without realizing it, we often give away the keys to our happiness to others. We do this with the hope that if someone else takes care of our emotional needs, life will become easier. We tend to think that if we have the right person by our side, everything else will fall into place. But what if I told you that your happiness has nothing to do with other people? In reality, you are the sole owner of your happiness. I know it may sound strange, but keep reading and you will begin to understand. The truth is that no matter how hard we try, we cannot control the emotions of others, and we certainly cannot place the responsibility for our happiness in their hands. Think about it. What happens if the person you expect to make you happy decides not to fulfill that role? Or worse, what if you become someone who constantly seeks approval from others to feel good about yourself? That kind of happiness, based on external validation, is unstable and unreliable. It is like trying to build a house on sand. No matter how many times you decorate the exterior, the foundation remains weak and unsteady if it is not grounded in self-control and personal understanding. Acknowledging that happiness is within your own hands is empowering, but it is important to recognize that achieving this internal peace is not easy. It requires deep and consistent effort to stop placing the responsibility for your well-being in the hands of others. The first step is understanding this truth. You must learn to be content with yourself without depending on external sources. While you may not have control over the things that happen around you, you do have control over how you respond to them. It's not about avoiding life's challenges, but about learning to navigate through them with the serenity that comes from knowing that everything is temporary, and you, at your core, will remain strong and resolute. So, the next time you feel trapped by the opinions or actions of others, remember this. You are the only person who has the power to decide how to live your life. Happiness does not come from outside sources. It is something that is cultivated from within. Once you learn to be happy on your own, you will not need anyone else to feel complete. After all, if you don't learn to be happy by yourself, who will do it for you? Let me make this very clear, my friend. Happiness is not something you will find in others. It is in how you choose to perceive the world around you. Now, let's talk about strength in adversity. Have you ever felt like the entire world is crashing down around you? Problems seem to multiply in ways that make you feel utterly helpless, as though you don't even know where to begin. In those moments, it's natural to think, who can save me from all this? But let me tell you something important. You don't need anyone to rescue you from life's difficulties. What you need to do is learn to adopt a Stoic mindset. Stoic philosophy is not just a collection of ancient ideas meant to make someone appear wise. It is a powerful emotional survival guide that teaches you how to stand firm during life's toughest moments. Rather than waiting for someone to swoop in and save you, Stoicism trains you to become the hero of your own story, no matter how dark the circumstances may get. Far too many people spend their lives waiting for fate or someone else to help them, but that's not how you learn to endure through life's challenges. The true strength comes from being able to remain calm and resilient no matter what life throws your way. The Stoics, who lived during times of war and great turmoil, understood that nothing outside of ourselves can truly bring us down, only what we allow to affect us. The key to your personal power lies in understanding the difference between what you can control and what you cannot. You can control your thoughts and reactions, but you cannot control others, the weather, or the unexpected phone call from your boss asking you to do something you hadn't planned. What you can control, however, is how you choose to face these challenges. I am not suggesting that you should become a cold, unfeeling robot. What the Stoics propose is that instead of being swept away by an emotional tide, you learn to swim against the current. It's like falling into a mud puddle. Rather than complaining and becoming upset, you simply stand up, knowing that the mud is temporary and that you have the strength to rise above it. Stoic calm is not the absence of emotion, but the ability to prevent your emotions from controlling you. One Stoic technique to help you do this is called negative visualization. This might sound a bit strange, but it's actually quite simple. The idea is to imagine the worst possible scenario that could happen in a situation that is causing you anxiety. When you visualize this worst-case outcome, you realize that it doesn't destroy you. It's not as scary as it seemed at first. This exercise helps prepare you for whatever might come your way, enabling you to face challenges with greater strength and serenity. Another piece of Stoic advice is to remember that you do not need anyone to make you feel complete. Now, don't get me wrong, I am not saying that you should stop loving your friends or stop appreciating the support of those who care about you. But emotional dependency on others is an obstacle. When you learn to manage your own emotional life and find peace within yourself, you come to realize that you don't need anyone else to be your anchor. True strength comes from within. When you cultivate this inner strength, you'll realize that you can face any storm without losing your peace of mind. Life will continue to present challenges. That is inevitable. But it's how you respond to those challenges that truly defines your journey. Stop waiting for circumstances to change before you can find peace. Take control of your life and face whatever comes your way with the calm confidence of a modern Stoic. True peace is not the absence of problems, but the ability to choose how you respond to them. Finally, let's explore the idea of being everything you need. Have you ever stopped to think that you don't need anything or anyone to be happy? It may sound strange, especially in a world where so many people are searching for something or someone to make them feel complete. But bear with me, because this is where things get interesting. When you learn to become everything you need, life transforms in ways you can't even imagine. The first thing you need to realize is that depending on others to feel happy is not only a myth, it's a mistake. Of course, it's wonderful to be surrounded by people who care about you, but if your happiness relies entirely on others, you will never fully control your own life. It's like relying on someone else to recharge your emotional batteries. But what if you could be your own charger? What if you could find that power within yourself? This is where self-awareness comes into play. Getting to know yourself is not a quick process. It's not a 5-minute introspection session followed by immediate answers. It's a long, sometimes uncomfortable, and often challenging journey. But the rewards are immense. When you truly understand yourself, you realize that you don't need constant validation from others. You don't need their approval or their love or their attention to feel good about who you are. The key is learning to live fully and independently, not in the sense of being alone, but in the sense of being content with your own company. When you no longer depend on others to define your worth, you will find true freedom. The Stoics understood this principle well. Stoic philosophy teaches that we cannot control what happens around us, but we can control our response to it. True freedom lies in not needing anything outside of ourselves to feel complete. I know this may sound like something from a cheesy self-help book, but if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. When you base your happiness on people or circumstances, you are always on an emotional roller coaster. But when you take control of your own life, no matter what happens around you, and realize that you already have everything you need within you, you find peace. So, how do you get to this point? First, let go of what you cannot control, the opinions of others, their malicious comments, and the external expectations placed on you. Stop carrying around all that unnecessary weight. Make a conscious effort to truly understand yourself. Ask yourself the deep, difficult, uncomfortable questions. Discover what you really like, what makes you feel good without anyone telling you what you need to feel complete. The next step is to cultivate emotional independence. This is not about being alone. It's about being at peace with yourself, enjoying your own company, and not feeling like you need anyone else to make you feel whole. With every step you take toward this independence, you'll be closer to realizing that you are everything you need to be. Life is about understanding that happiness doesn't come from the outside world. It comes from within. When you stop needing others to define your worth, you realize that everything you've been searching for, you already have. And that, my friend, is true freedom. No matter how painful it may seem, I'll make it clear to you. Fulfillment doesn't come when you find what you're looking for. It comes when you realize you already had everything inside of you all along. If you've made it this far, write in the comments, "I don't need anyone to be happy." I encourage you to subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment so that YouTube knows these videos are helpful to people like you. This motivates us to keep creating content like this. Thank you for your time and support, and I'll see you in the next video. Let's be clear, your life is filled with things that don't serve you. These things hold you back and drain your energy, yet have you ever stopped to consider why you keep carrying them? Sometimes the most rebellious act isn't making noise, but silently removing everything that adds nothing of value to your life. Toxic relationships, self-destructive habits. You don't need to announce it to the world, nor should you wait for anyone's approval to make these changes. In today's video, I will guide you through how to apply Stoic philosophy to let go of what you can't control and free yourself. Life is too short to remain trapped by the expectations of others. I will show you, step by step, how to eliminate the 10 things that are undoubtedly causing chaos in your life. These things are not only impacting you mentally and physically, but they are slowly destroying you. In no time at all, you'll realize that the last thing will leave you speechless. So begin today in silence with no excuses. Ultimately, what you leave behind says far more about you than what you desperately try to hold on to. Are you ready to truly start living? But before we dive into the lessons, let me share a story that will help you better understand the wisdom contained in this material. In a remote seaside village lived a young fisherman named Eleanor, who was well known for her ability to navigate the roughest waters and fish on even the most challenging days. Over the years, Eleanor had accumulated a large number of broken nets and tools that she no longer used, but she kept them out of habit. Despite this, every time she set out to sea, her small boat was cluttered with unnecessary items that hindered her work. One day, as she prepared for a long day on the ocean, a strong storm broke out. The waves were battering her boat, and Elena realized that the excess baggage she was carrying was severely limiting her ability to maneuver. For hours, she fought the storm, but she couldn't shake the feeling that her real enemy wasn't just the waves, it was the unnecessary burden she was carrying. In a moment of clarity, Eleanor made a difficult but necessary decision. She began to throw away everything that was no longer useful. First, the broken nets, then the frayed ropes, and finally, even some personal items she had kept out of attachment. With each item that left her boat, it grew lighter, and she could maneuver with ease. The waves were still crashing hard, but now Elena no longer felt trapped by the weight of the past. Thanks to her actions, she was able to stay afloat, and when the storm finally subsided, she made it back to port, exhausted but safe. When her fellow fishermen asked how she had survived, Eleanor responded with a calm smile, saying, "There are times in life when we cling to things we don't need, objects, memories, or people that only add weight to our journey. Only when we let go of what's unnecessary, silently and without drama, do we find the freedom to move forward." The moral of this story is that in life, we must silently eliminate many things in order to continue. Sometimes the load we carry hinders us from moving forward, and only by letting go can we discover our true path. Now, before we begin, if you find these videos helpful, I encourage you to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can stay updated with the latest content. Let's dive into the first lesson. The first thing to eliminate is the fear of others' opinions. Have you ever stopped to think about how many decisions you've made simply out of fear of what others might think? That fear sneaks into your life and prevents you from being yourself, as if you're living on stage under the critical eye of an audience that likely isn't even paying attention. The truth is, people are usually too caught up in their own insecurities to judge you, but still, you feel paralyzed by the fear of others' judgment. This fear is one of those silent parasites that latch onto your dreams, whispering in your ear whenever you think about doing something bold or different. What will they think? And suddenly, you change your course. You start living in ways that please others, even though they may not be in your inner circle, and in doing so, you lose sight of who you really are. This is how this fear works. It pushes you to please people you might not even know well, as if your internal compass is misaligned. Instead of following the path your intuition points to, you follow society's expectations. You put on the mask that fits the moment, at work, with friends, and even on social media. But where is the real you beneath all the fake smiles and borrowed opinions? Sometimes, the fear of what others will say is more subtle. It disguises itself as caution, as if saying, "It's not the right time," or "Maybe I'm not good enough." But deep down, these are simply excuses, veiling the fear of judgment. To eliminate this fear, we must embrace Stoic philosophy. The Stoics remind us that we cannot control what others think of us, but we can control how we react to it. It sounds simple, but it isn't easy. It requires constant self-reflection and courage. It's about learning to live for yourself, making decisions that bring you happiness, not based on the expectations of others. Life is too short to live in the shadow of other people's opinions. A good exercise is to start quietly eliminating things in your life that don't add value. Those things you hold on to just to please others. If you've chosen a career that doesn't satisfy you, get rid of that burden. Start making small decisions, like doing something you've always wanted to, but were afraid to because of what others might think. Taking those small actions will free you. It won't be easy, and some days the weight of others' judgment will feel overwhelming. But remind yourself that every time you live according to others' opinions, you lose a little bit of yourself. It's a slow, silent death, but it's one you can avoid if you have the courage to be true to yourself. So, begin by eliminating those things quietly. There's no need to announce it to the world. Just let go of what doesn't belong to you. Learn to trust your own judgment and value your own opinion more than the opinions of others. In the end, the only person you have to answer to is yourself. As Carl Jung said, freedom begins the moment you stop worrying about what others think. The second thing to eliminate is toxic relationships. There's a saying I love: there is no worse blind person than the one who refuses to see. This is so true, and we often apply this selective blindness to our relationships. We get used to dealing with people who, in one way or another, subtract from our lives rather than adding to them. Yes, I'm talking about toxic relationships, which drain your energy little by little. The worst part is that we sometimes cling to these relationships as if they were indispensable. And it's not just about romantic relationships. Toxicity can exist in family, friendships, and at work. The funny thing is, no one forces you to keep these relationships in your life, but you continue to tolerate them in silence, almost as if letting go would be an offense to the world. Why do we do this? Perhaps because we've been taught that cutting ties is a sign of weakness or even cruelty. In reality, removing someone from your life can be one of the greatest acts of self-love. Philosophically speaking, the Stoics emphasized that we should not worry about what we cannot control, and this also applies to the people around us. You can't control how others act, but you can control whether you allow them to remain in your life. The challenge comes in doing this quietly. It's not about revenge or trying to appear superior. It's simply making the conscious decision to stop feeding a relationship that wears you down. Think about this. You don't need to create a drama to eliminate what no longer serves you. You don't need to announce it to anyone. Just stop feeding the relationship silently and without fanfare. Think of it like when you stop watering a plant that no longer blooms. You do it gently, with the understanding that it no longer belongs in your garden. Nothing dramatic happens. The plant continues its journey, and so do you. Everyone moves on, and that's perfectly fine. Have you ever noticed that there are people who, even if they are close to you, leave you feeling exhausted after spending time with them? It's not that they are bad people, but their energy just doesn't align with yours. And that's when the key comes in, learning to recognize these signs. Pay attention to how your body and mind react. If you find that every interaction with a certain person feels like running an emotional marathon, you might be in a toxic relationship. As painful as it may be to admit, this could be the truth. Here's where the strategy of silence comes in. You gradually reduce your interactions with them. You stop seeking out contact. You distance yourself quietly. There's no need for dramatic gestures or heated arguments. You simply stop being available. This is liberating, not because you are turning your back on the world, but because you are choosing to prioritize your own well-being. Self-love isn't just about loudly saying no. Sometimes it's about quietly saying enough. To identify these relationships, consider this. If seeing a message from them causes a knot in your stomach, or if spending time with them leaves you more drained than an entire week of work, or if you always find yourself giving without receiving anything in return, then you have your answer. Once you see it clearly, the process of elimination begins. Let it go quietly, without drama, without unnecessary explanations. Just move forward. The key isn't about being cruel, it's about respecting yourself enough to stop letting someone drain your energy. Energy that could be better spent on people or activities that bring you joy. Ultimately, it's about being honest with yourself and placing your well-being above guilt or fear of hurting others. Some people are like the wind. You feel them, but you can't hold on to them. Let them go. We all have destructive habits that sneak up on us. They start as small, seemingly harmless actions, but over time, they erode our mental or physical peace. I've fallen into that trap many times, doing little things that appear harmless at first, but, without realizing it, wear us down like a constant drip of water wearing away at a rock. What if these habits are the rocks in our daily lives? How do we eliminate them without making a scene? The first step is recognizing them. It's hard to pinpoint what bothers us about others, but when it comes to ourselves, it becomes easier. You wake up in the morning and, without thinking, reach for your phone. It's not for anything important, just out of habit, as if your finger is programmed to swipe the screen before your mind has even fully woken up. It feels harmless at first, but after a while, you realize you've spent 20 minutes scrolling mindlessly, your head already filled with distractions before your feet even hit the ground. This is just one example, but we do this with so many things. The extra cup of coffee that wasn't necessary, the conversation you shouldn't have had, the TV show that adds nothing but you continue to watch out of habit. These small things, over time, begin to chip away at your well-being. Eliminating these habits is no easy task. How many times have you promised yourself to quit doing something only to find yourself doing it more? It's like saying, "Tomorrow I'll start," but tomorrow comes, and it's just another day of excuses. This is where the Stoics' wisdom comes in. They taught that great changes don't happen suddenly, but in small, almost imperceptible steps. These steps are silent. You don't need to announce your intention to change to the world, nor do you need grand gestures. The key is in awareness. When you notice yourself reaching for your phone without thinking, simply stop. You don't need to throw the phone out the window, though that might feel cathartic. Just stop, breathe, and do something else. When you realize you're reaching for a third cup of coffee, ask yourself, do I really need this, or is it just out of habit? If it's the latter, put the cup down. Sometimes eliminating these habits is as simple as catching yourself at the right moment and making a small change. You don't need drama or monumental shifts to stop self-destructive habits. It's about consistency and silence. These small changes, like a drop of water over time, gradually polish away the rough edges. If you ever feel like you're not making progress, remember that what seems like a small effort now will, over time, become a great victory. You might not notice it immediately, but it's like planting a seed and forgetting about it until one day you realize a tree has grown. This is how small changes work in our lives. So, The next time you identify one of those habits that subtracts more from your life than it adds, eliminate it silently. No need for a grand announcement or dramatic gestures. Just let it go step by step, drop by drop. As Epictetus said, true change makes no noise. It just happens. Now, let's talk about the desire to control everything. Have you ever felt that if you don't have complete control over everything happening around you, the world will somehow fall apart? I understand. We like to believe that if we can organize everything down to the last detail, if we anticipate every possible outcome, life will run smoothly like a perfectly well-oiled machine. But that is an illusion. The more we try to control things, the more we feel like we are losing balance. The truth is, trying to control everything is a mental prison, one that we build piece by piece each time we believe that if we just try harder, things will go exactly as we expect. But the universe doesn't work like that. Stoic philosophy teaches us that the key is not to try and control what we cannot, but to let go of what is unnecessary and focus on what truly depends on us. Think about it. We try to control the time, the opinions of others, the reactions, the outcomes, all of these things that are beyond our control. It's like trying to stop the tide with your hands. It's nonsense. Yet, we do this constantly. And when things don't go as planned, we get frustrated and angry, as if some cosmic injustice is at play. It's ironic, isn't it? Imagine that you're carrying a backpack, and every time you try to control something that's beyond your reach, you add a stone to it. At first, the weight may not bother you too much, but over time, that backpack becomes heavier and heavier, eventually crushing you. Wouldn't it be better to get rid of those stones and make space for what really matters? Things that you can control, like your emotions, your actions. You need to learn to let go of the things that don't depend on you. For a long time, I was obsessed with anticipating every possible negative outcome in my life. If I had a work meeting, I was already mentally preparing for every awkward question. If I was meeting friends, I worried about whether the venue would be right. I was constantly stressed, imagining all the things that could go wrong. And of course, most of them never happened. Over time, I realized that this obsession with controlling every detail wasn't giving me more control. It was just giving me more anxiety. Slowly, I began to trust more in the process of life. Things still happened, sometimes in the way I hoped, sometimes not, but I felt lighter because I had stopped carrying the weight of everything that wasn't up to me. Learning to trust life doesn't mean being passive or irresponsible. It's about having the maturity to accept that there are things beyond our control, and that's okay. Letting go doesn't mean lying down and letting life pass you by. It means making space for the unexpected, for the surprises that come from things you can't control. And by letting go, you take control in a much more powerful way. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us in his Meditations, real power lies in the ability to release what we cannot control. One of the most draining things we try to hold on to is our unrealistic expectations. I don't know about you, but I spent a large part of my life trapped in the belief that I had to be perfect. No one ever directly demanded perfection from me, yet somehow it was always there, lingering in the background, embedded in well-meaning compliments and subtle glances of approval. The unspoken comparisons, the pressure to be what others expected, became intertwined with the belief that success meant living up to both external expectations and the sky-high standards I had set for myself. But here's the truth. Striving to meet unrealistic expectations is like trying to fill a bottomless well with a bucket that leaks. You keep trying, pouring yourself out over and over, only to end up drained and discouraged. And what are you left with? A tired soul standing over a shallow puddle of frustration. What makes it worse is that many of these expectations don't even originate from us. They come from family, friends, society, and we accept them, thinking that the path to becoming better means we must live up to them. Let me ask you something. How many times have you felt deeply disappointed for not achieving something you never truly wanted in the first place? We set our sights so high that when we fall short, we feel like failures. If I'm not the best at work, the most loving partner, the perfect friend, or the ideal child, then what's left of me? These expectations start to weigh heavier than our actual efforts. It's like running a race with a backpack full of rocks. You move slower, get tired faster, and even if you reach the finish line, it feels like you crawled there. That's why I find Stoic philosophy so enlightening. It teaches us that we can't control how others perceive us or whether life unfolds in our favor. What we can control is how we respond to it. The key is learning to lighten the burden of those suffocating expectations. Lowering your expectations, both of yourself and of others, doesn't mean you're settling. It means you're setting yourself free. You're breaking away from that constant need to accomplish the impossible and allowing yourself to simply be and move forward. Of course, this transformation doesn't happen overnight. I'm not saying you should toss all your expectations out like yesterday's trash. Think of it like cleaning out a closet full of old clothes. You start by picking out what doesn't fit you anymore, what you never really liked, and piece by piece, you let go. Sometimes it's hard to get rid of something you believe you might use again, but deep down, you know you won't. Expectations work the same way. Begin by releasing the ones that were never truly yours. Then take a closer look at your own and ask yourself, are they really realistic? You don't have to hold on to everything. One simple yet powerful way to reduce the pressure of expectations is to change the way you speak to yourself. Instead of saying, I must do everything perfectly, try, I'll do the best I can with what I have right now. It might sound basic, but it's incredibly freeing. It gives you space to make mistakes, to be human, and to grow without that looming pressure. And another trick: don't announce all your plans to everyone. The less noise you create, the fewer expectations others will form about your journey. Because at the end of the day, all those outside expectations are just that, noise. When you silently remove what no longer serves you, life begins to flow in a more authentic, peaceful rhythm. Letting go of expectations isn't giving up, it's wisdom in action. Instead of focusing on who you should be or what you should achieve, concentrate on what truly matters to you and what lies within your control. Fewer expectations mean more freedom. Carve that truth into your mind. The less you expect, the lighter your soul becomes. Now let's talk about something else many of us cling to: the constant need to always be right. Have you ever noticed this compulsive tendency? The urge to be the one who's always correct. To be seen as the clever one, the know-it-all, the person with the final say in every discussion. It's as if every conversation is a battlefield, and your sense of worth depends on emerging victorious. But here's the twist: the war isn't with others, it's within yourself. Every time you argue just to prove you're right, it's as if you're trying to validate your own importance. Isn't that exhausting? I know it wore me out. We've been conditioned to believe we must always have the correct answer, that being wrong is somehow a weakness. Society, social media, even casual family gatherings reinforce this idea. Mistakes equal failure. But I'll share a little secret with you. Being right isn't always the most important thing. In fact, Stoic philosophy encourages us to accept what we can't control. And guess what? You can't control how others see things. This endless race to prove your intellect leads nowhere. It only breeds anxiety, frustration, and emptiness. That need to be the smartest in the room? You can drop it quietly. Ask yourself, what do I really gain by always being right? A badge of honor no one sees? An imaginary trophy? Carrying that weight is like dragging a suitcase full of rocks. Every debate, every forced opinion adds another stone. Eventually, the burden becomes unbearable, and you're left wondering why you feel so heavy inside. Next time you feel that itch to argue, try staying silent. Not because you've lost, but because you're letting go. It's like finally dropping a pen you didn't realize you'd been clutching for hours. What a relief. Suddenly, you feel a lightness you didn't even know you needed. The same goes for the need to be right. When you release it, you see how pointless the fight was and how peaceful it feels to simply let it go. How do you start letting go? First, accept that you don't always need to be the one who knows everything. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to not have an opinion on every topic. Life isn't a quiz show. Second, practice listening, not to rebut or correct, but to genuinely understand. There's a big difference between hearing someone and truly listening. The first is automatic. The second takes effort and intention. And when you listen like that, the need to correct others starts to fade. Lastly, embrace silence. Embrace those quiet pauses in conversations, those moments when a response isn't necessary. Sometimes, the most powerful response is none at all, just letting others have their say. Because winning an argument isn't the same as having inner peace. So ask yourself, is it really worth sacrificing your peace just to prove a point? I doubt it. The next time you're tempted to jump in and correct someone, pause. Take a breath. Let it go. The peace you gain is far more valuable than any fleeting satisfaction of being right. And if you ever need reassurance, remember what the Stoics knew so well. True wisdom isn't in winning debates, but in knowing when not to engage. As Seneca put it, knowledge isn't about winning every battle. It's about knowing when not to fight. Let's now explore one more subtle but destructive weight we carry: the digital noise. Have you noticed how you're constantly surrounded by it? Not just the literal noise of cars or the neighbors hammering, but the digital kind. The constant buzzing, beeping, flashing. It's in your pocket, your hands, your eyes. It's the never-ending stream of social media posts, messages, and notifications. And it's all designed to distract you, to keep you in a permanent state of tension, as if you're on high alert 24/7. You may think you're in control, but in reality, it's the digital chaos that's controlling you. We live in a world where silence has become a rare luxury. But here's the good news: it's not out of reach. You just have to learn to identify what's really stealing your attention. Because there are things, noisy, invisible things, that you absolutely must begin to eliminate from your life. And yes, you can do it. But you need to go deeper than just closing an app or switching off a notification. That's like trying to put out a wildfire with a single cup of water. You need to be bold. You need to be deliberate. The Stoics knew that inner peace was everything, and that peace can't exist in a mind drowning in digital distraction. So what should you cut out? Let's start with social media. I know it sounds like a cliché, but believe me, the more people you follow, the more noise you allow in. I'm not saying you need to disappear from the internet, but you seriously need to ask yourself, do you really need to know what your sister's friend's cousin did on their vacation? Get rid of all of it, without hesitation. Be ruthless about protecting your peace, because every extra piece of digital clutter is a barrier between you and a quieter, calmer life. And you deserve that peace. You deserve to hear your own thoughts again. You deserve to live without the constant noise. Silently eliminate what doesn't serve you and watch your life shift. Watch it slow down. Watch it open up. Just like someone who cleans out their closet, tossing out things that no longer serve a purpose or should have never been there in the first place, you can start fresh. Begin with something seemingly small. Notifications. This is where things start to get interesting. Why do you let your phone interrupt your flow every couple of minutes? Each time it vibrates or dings with a message, your brain leaps into action, dragging your attention away. It doesn't just steal your time, it drains your mental energy too. So do this. Disable every non-essential notification. At first, you'll probably feel a wave of anxiety, as though you're missing out on something crucial. But give it time. Eventually, you'll realize how freeing it is to regain control over when and how you engage with your phone. You'll thank yourself for it. That nagging fear of missing out, FOMO as we call it, has become one of the great villains of modern life. We live tethered to the idea that if we aren't constantly connected, we're losing out on something significant. But here's an uncomfortable truth. The things that truly matter are not found on your screen. They exist in your surroundings, in the people you're with, in the quiet, unnoticed moments you miss while waiting for the latest viral post. So release that fear. Stop trying to be everywhere at once, because the more you try to grasp it all, the more you miss out on what's truly worthwhile. Once you begin to let go of all that digital noise, something amazing happens. You start to hear what really matters. Digital silence becomes the gateway to reconnecting with yourself, your thoughts, and your true priorities. That's where Stoic philosophy gently steps in. While you can't always control what happens around you, you can control how you respond. And when the noise fades, life becomes much clearer. So here's my advice. Choose silence, not as the absence of sound, but as the conscious presence of what you genuinely want in your life. That, in the end, is the real luxury of our era. As Gandhi once said, peace doesn't come when the noise ends. It arrives when you choose to listen to yourself. Now let's talk about those negative thoughts. Have you ever noticed how negative thoughts can creep in without a sound? One minute everything feels fine, and the next, it's as if these thoughts are in control. They sneak in quietly, and before you know it, they're influencing everything you do. They're like those neighbors who show up uninvited and never seem to leave. What's worse is that you often hand them the keys, not because you want to, but because they've convinced you that they belong there, that their presence is normal. But what if you could change the locks? Let's be clear. These negative thoughts are just destructive mental patterns that start shaping your behavior in the worst possible ways. You've probably caught yourself thinking things like, "Nothing ever works out for me," or "I'm never going to succeed." And the more you repeat these thoughts, the more you start to believe them. It's like planting a poisoned tree and then wondering why the fruit is bitter. The twist is, these thoughts aren't usually rooted in reality, but they feel as real as the ground beneath your feet. And again, Stoic wisdom shines with its sharp clarity. You may not be able to control what life throws at you, but you can choose how to respond. It sounds simple, but most of the time we forget this. We let our emotions be hijacked by these recurring thought patterns. Yet true freedom lies in regaining control of your response. Now, this change doesn't happen overnight. It starts with silence. Yes, silence again. Quietly begin to eliminate the thoughts that no longer serve you. You don't need to put on a show or dramatically cast them out. Just learn to recognize when a negative thought appears, identify it, then move on without giving it more attention than it deserves. Because the more attention you give these thoughts, the more power you hand over to them. It's like chasing a fly around a room. Obsessing over it only makes it worse. Why not just ignore it until it tires itself out? Another powerful technique is to question those thoughts when they show up. If you catch yourself spiraling into negativity, ask yourself, is this really true? Is everything going wrong, or am I just exaggerating the moment? Often, you'll find that these are blown-up ideas with no real foundation, and even if there's a grain of truth in them, at least you've started thinking about solutions instead of marinating in the problem. Finally, let's talk about detachment. No, you don't need to become a monk on a mountaintop, but you do need to create some emotional distance from the chaos inside your head. Your thoughts are not you. Just because a thought enters your mind doesn't mean it deserves a permanent home there. With practice, you'll start to observe them for what they really are, fleeting clouds in a sky that remains constant beneath it all. Negative thoughts are like little intruders that you don't need to fight loudly. Just release them quietly, with patience and a shift in focus. Over time, you'll see that what you think determines what you do, and what you do defines who you are. As Brian Tracy said, thoughts are not facts, but if you believe them, they become your reality. Let's move on to something else we often overlook: physical and mental disorder. Have you ever woken up feeling like the whole world is just a bit too heavy? You glance around and realize it's not just a feeling. Your space is literally overflowing with stuff. Papers scattered, clothes piled on the chair, objects crammed into every corner. And somehow, your mind feels just as cluttered. If you're like me, when your surroundings are chaotic, your thoughts tend to mirror that mess. Physical and mental disorder are far more connected than we'd like to admit. When your space is drowning in clutter, your mind can't help but follow. The Stoics emphasized the importance of focusing on the essential and letting go of the excess. Disorder, in many ways, is the complete opposite. It's the accumulation of the unnecessary. Every out-of-place item, every forgotten object is more than just physical mess. It's energy drain, it's mental noise. It's a quiet reminder of everything you haven't dealt with yet. That overwhelming feeling of not knowing where to begin. That's the trap. We try to tackle everything at once instead of simply starting with what no longer serves us. So begin quietly. Look around. Ask yourself honestly, do I need this? If something hasn't been used in ages, chances are you don't need it anymore. But don't stop at material things. Mental clutter works the same way. We hoard emotions, thoughts, and worries like someone keeping broken items just in case. But those things only weigh us down. So what can you do? Begin to release them. Gently, silently. No drama, no need for big declarations. Just let go of what drains you, both physically and mentally. In a world obsessed with noise and chaos, choosing silence can be an act of quiet rebellion. If there are people in your life who cause unease, projects that no longer excite you, or thoughts that only exhaust you, let them go. No need to explain, no need to overthink, just release. Remember, your outer environment often reflects your inner world. So when you bring clarity to your physical space, you'll find that same clarity slowly making its way into your mind. It's not magic. It's the natural result of thoughtful elimination, like cleaning out a drawer and feeling a weight lift from your chest. Every item in its rightful place becomes one less thing to worry about. The Stoics never complicated life with what wasn't necessary. They focused on what mattered and released what didn't. That's the kind of life we should aim for, one of simplicity and intention. Because in a world bursting with clutter, both physical and mental, it's easy to get lost. But the way out has always been there, hidden beneath the mess. You just couldn't see it. If you want peace of mind, start by organizing what's around you. Do it slowly. Do it quietly. Eliminate what no longer belongs, not in a frenzy, but with gentle, constant care. Your mind will thank you for it. As Nelson Mandela once said, "When the noise is silenced, the essential is heard more clearly." And now, let's talk about comparisons. Unnecessary comparisons. Why do we have this habit of measuring ourselves against others? Let's be honest, we all do it. But think for a moment. Does it actually serve you? It's like running in a race where no one else is actually competing, but you keep trying to beat someone anyway. They're not aware they're in the competition, and worst of all, they likely don't even care. And yet, there you are, inside your head, analyzing every step, every stumble, every tiny bit of progress. Not even your own, but that of others. You keep measuring your worth by someone else's journey. Comparing yourself to others is like entering a singing contest using someone else's voice. It's nonsense. You have your own melody, your own rhythm, and yet you insist on following someone else's sheet music. The real issue is that this seemingly innocent habit slowly chips away at your self-worth. One day, you wake up feeling like you're falling short. You're not fast enough, not successful enough, not enough in some way. And all of that stems from spending more time watching what's happening on the sides than focusing on what's ahead. The truth is, life isn't a sprint. It's more like a journey by boat. You decide the route, the pace, and the stops. But if you're too focused on the sailboats passing you by, all you end up doing is drifting off your own course. Here's the ironic part. While you're busy watching someone else's boat glide by, that person might be doing the exact same thing, watching yours. That's how ridiculous comparison can be. Everyone's looking sideways, but hardly anyone is fully experiencing their own journey. Let me offer you something. Stop comparing yourself quietly. Make it like one of those silent habits that you drop without fanfare. Like when you throw away a worn-out shirt that no longer serves you. No one needs to know you did it, but you'll feel the difference immediately. Because comparing yourself to others isn't just pointless, it's a betrayal of who you are. It's like telling your inner self that it's not enough, that you have to become someone else to be worthy. But if you pause and really think about it, that mindset is completely irrational. The Stoics already taught us this. The only meaningful comparison is with the person you were yesterday. So, what do you do when that little voice inside starts comparing again? The answer isn't to silence it, because that will only make it shout louder. Instead, hear it out, then challenge its reasoning. Why are you comparing yourself to that specific person? What is it about them that makes you feel less than? And then, here comes the part that truly matters. Remind yourself of everything you've accomplished on your own path. Take a moment to genuinely reflect on your growth, your little wins. You'll be amazed at how easy it is to forget how far you've come when you're constantly scanning someone else's progress. Another approach that really works is practicing gratitude. I know it might sound cliché, like one of those generic pieces of advice, but I promise you, it holds power. Be thankful for what you have, for what you've achieved, and for who you are becoming. Because when your focus shifts to what's present in your life instead of what's missing or what someone else has, you'll feel something shift inside you. Suddenly, the burden of comparison starts to lift. You begin to realize that the only path that truly matters is your own. At the end of the day, life is far too short to waste time running in some imaginary race with people who aren't even aware of the competition. Comparing yourself just distracts you from what's truly important. Living your life at your own pace, guided by your own values. And trust me, once you begin to do that, you'll understand how freeing it really is. Let me leave you with a thought that helped me during some of my toughest moments. When you stop seeing yourself through the eyes of others, you finally begin to uncover who you truly are. If you've made it to this point, write this in the comments. In the silence, you will find the answer. I'd love to hear your stories of growth and success. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and drop a comment. This lets YouTube know these kinds of videos are meaningful to people like you, and it encourages us to keep making more. Also, check out the last 2 videos we posted. They might resonate with where you are now. Thank you so much for your time and support. I can't wait to see you on our next journey.